Let's do this. Good afternoon, good time zone, and warm greetings to wherever you are in the world. This is Amelie, aka Space.Puffin, and I am here to read to you the TGCF Titanic AU. Yeah, I've been making these Titanic jokes since about, I think it was episode 4 of the Donghua. And at that time, I didn't even know what Volume 3 looked like. So honestly, if not for all those jokes, I might not have called this the Titanic one in my head. It might have been like the Little Mermaid one, because it kind of gives that vibe too. Romantic AF. But I'll be back to that in a minute, because first off, let's round off Volume 2. Chapter 27, the last chapter of Volume 2, was a lot. It had a lot of emotional weight, let's put it like that, as well as a few setups, some of which I feel like might actually be themes that we're going to be seeing for the rest of this book series. And of course, if I have to talk about one in particular, it's the topic of fate. Because if you did watch my last video, you might have guessed or perceived that part was particularly frustrating for me to both read and understand. And I think that after reading your comments, I think it really shows that I am painfully European. Like, fate by itself is not a new thing in storytelling by any means. In the West as well, you find it in most storytelling traditions and also in many mythological canons. But to me, the way I'm most familiar with fate when presented with it in a story is when it's presented as an external force, usually against the main character's free will, or any character's free will, really. It's something that you're supposed to overcome or defy, or to struggle against only for its prophecy to fulfill itself. Like, fate is anything from divine intervention to a good old underdog story. So, encountering this new setting, I think it's going to take me a little bit of time just to understand it, to get used to seeing it, used to this implementation of it. But talking to you guys in the comments, as well as actually rereading the chapter, has helped me a lot. Both discussing it as a concept in the context of the story of the universe of TGCF, but also coming from the perspective of a more Eastern mindset. The cultural implications of this novel having been written, mainly for a Chinese audience to begin with. And I do have some thoughts that I would like to voice that did pop up in the comment discussions. Some things I really liked, because I don't want you guys to mistake my confusion for dislike. It's just simply normal for me to be encountering subjects that I'm not familiar with, considering I'm reading a translated Chinese novel that is also set in what's the vocabulary again? Like in this sort of genre, in this sort of setting. Again, both things that I'm not familiar with at all before TGCF. Regarding the thing about fate and fortune, I like the idea that has been presented in the novel as a whole, now that I've thought about it, that it's really not just about when you were born. Like, yes, that kind of took precedence in the previous chapter, but the circumstances to which you are born obviously influences this majorly. Like, recalling this comment from Holy Milk that I read this morning. Hualian, with his marvelous fortune, has been born into riches and privilege, as well as having a very, a good personality to complement all that. Well, Hong being born into the sort of family he's been born into, the sort of circumstances he's been born into, was already predisposed for a bad fortune, so to speak. And again, thinking back on this, it really makes sense, because that's kind of what the story has been telling us from before. Recalling now that most of the gods in heaven, the people who got to ascend, were humans who were very well off in life. Like, yes, there were probably exceptions, but mainly people who were already quite rich or had family connections and had the time to pursue certain arts and martial arts and so on. were way more likely to ascend as a god than someone who was born poor, which is a discussion we've had before. I'm sensing a kind of, like, there's a little bit of classism to this, honestly. And if that was the author's intent, I am quite intrigued by this. And then going off of this and back to Hualian, who is in a very fortuitous position, who has great fortune, apparently. His circumstances are giving him this great fortune. However, his beliefs, his own convictions, puts him outside of this safe zone that is his born into good fortune. Because in theory, if Hualian was to act in his own self-interest all the time, he would be better off than if he were to stand up against injustice, which is what he does to his father and his beliefs in the previous chapter, which is what he does when he saves the child and says that there is nothing wrong with that. Like, perceivably, Hualian stands to ascend because of his sheer talents, as the state preceptor says. And perceivably, he could probably have gotten away with, staying up in heaven, maintaining a few followers somehow, as somehow, and live his merry life as an ascended person. But he doesn't. From the prologue, we know that he goes down to help his kingdom, and the Hualian we meet in this chapter is like that. He will take the side of the unfortunate. He will go up to this poor 10-year-old child and give him comfort and words of affirmation when everyone else in the room is just rejecting him. So yes, Hualian has a shit ton of good fortune in his circumstances from birth. However, he puts himself into situations where those circumstances are not enough, Or at least, that is my vague theory of what is kind of going down here. Like, I am still working on this, and I have thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts. However, I hesitate to write any essays about this topic just yet. But I will say, exchanging fates will be a thing. And that begs the question, in our current timeline, did that already happen? More on that in a minute. Because first off, introducing Mei Nianqing, the state preceptor of Xianle, your resident fortune teller and master jinxer, and also my ex-BFF after the whole spiel he pulled with my baby Hong. Hong-er. Hong-er. Because that was not in any of my child pedagogy books, and I doubt he's ever actually read one. I'm calling the board on him. Ring ring, John Woo, can you please come keep your followers in check? He might actually answer if I tell him Hualian got sad about it. Anyway, in addition to all that, something that did stand out to me about Mei Nianqing is his belief in Hualian. Like, in this chapter, he is definitely calling him both young and inexperienced. But I can't help but notice that he's also not rejecting any of Hualian's ideas. In fact, he seems pretty impressed by them. The fact that Hualian has thought of them at his age. So the way I read these scenes, it seems to me that the state preceptor is actually happy to let Hualian go on and try. And he wants to give him advice instead of telling him that it's a fool's errand. On page 387, after Hualian tells him all the things that he wants to do as a god, he says, "Very well, I shall wait and see. However, I don't think it's a good thing for you to ascend too early." He strikes again. Xianle's fucking master jinxer, that one. Because that is exactly what happens. 17 is too early. This is Hualian's 17th year, and he never has that chance. He's never given the time to grow, to face his own naivety, or even meet any limitations. And his early ascension will be key in whatever follows. I know it. Like Mei Nianqing was right, unfortunately, for all of us. You can't just let a teenager become God, no matter how good he is at swinging around swords. In the interactions between Hualian and his state preceptor, his teacher, we do see a lot of these parallels to the Yongan and Fengxin arc. I already mentioned one of them in the previous episode, chapter, read along, and there's a couple of more here, for instance in the metaphors that are mentioned. The little thought experiments with the cups and the water and all that. And in a sense, I guess it would make sense that Hualian as a teacher would try to emulate, the only teachers he's ever had. But I gotta say, Mr. May, Hualian really wore that teacher persona better than you did. And I bet he read the manuals on how to handle children. With a little bit of care, But let's go back to that page, because it has one of my favorite parts of the entire chapter. Smells like hope and teen spirit. State Preceptor, do you think I can ascend? Hualian asked. The State Preceptor gave him a look and said, if you can't ascend, then no one can. It is only a matter of time. Hualian smiled. Then just you watch, sir. He pointed to the sky. If one day I ascend, I will surely do all that I said today and become a power to behold. Fengxin and Muqing, who were standing behind him, both unconsciously held their heads higher after hearing his declaration. Fengxin's lips curved upward, and the light shining in Muqing's eyes was exactly the same as Hualian's. Don't you just love that? Hualian announcing his goal, what he wants to do in life, and then his two friends, accomplices, his jades, shiny rocks. Like, they're lifting their heads and they want to stand beside him, and I feel like they want this goal to happen as well. Like, Fengxin smiling like that. Like, there are several ways to interpret all of this, but I felt like he is so proud of his friend, and this is the person he respects and follows and is loyal towards, and this is one of the reasons why. And Muqing being described as having that same shine in his eyes as Hualian, it's to me, having just listened to this whole spiel, like, I feel like it's this mutual hopefulness, and the fact that they're so in sync about this, it's so charming, it's so nice. And then knowing that they all went to heaven together when Hualian ascended, it's fun. It's a nice scene. And while I know, again, as we've been shown in these chapters, that all of these people have slightly different mindsets and way of thinking about things, in this moment, it just feels like, this is a group, like they are a trio. And they're together about this goal now. It's kind of the vibe you're getting, right? So I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes next. Now let's talk about my baby. Let's talk about Honghonger and whatever is going on with him. Because the bad fortunes of his circumstances, that's one thing. But the whole thing with the black pagodas and all the resentful spirits, and that really threw me off. Because, like, is this too a part of his faith thing? As Mr. Horoscope explained to us, Honghonger is born under the zodiac's the Star of Solitude, which is apparently like the worst that you can ever be born under, like birth-wise, But is that what, like, just his... Did Honghonger having that bad fortune and him just arriving on this mountain, was that seriously enough to trigger, the opening of all of these pagodas that, had all of these resentful spirits sealed away? Or did something else coincidentally trigger that? Because I don't know how to feel about this specific part. Because all the other events that apparently, were bad and happened because Honghonger appeared, ever since Honghonger appeared, really is, a lot of the time, because of these, external forces. Like we mentioned earlier, it's not actually Honghonger's fault that he was born into the family he was born into. And nor is it his fault that Qirong is a little fucking shit. And perceivably, it's not Hong Honger's fault that he fell from that fucking wall and needed to get, saved. And that is why I really don't know how to feel about the whole thing of the spirits all at once at the same time, just appearing and, breaking out and going after this little kid. Like, I kind of want it to be a coincidence. I want there to have been something else that just happened to trigger it at this point, and like for there to be some sort of plot around it or whatever. Like, I feel like I'd feel better about it if it did. But the way it's being presented to us, it's because of him and because of his fortune. Him being in this place which had all these spirits sealed was not a good thing. Or maybe it was a good thing, and maybe it was a reminder to the state preceptor that they need to fix up their old little seals and just, maintain them. Because apparently they weren't strong enough to hold all these spirits or whatever. Jeez. Yeah, summary of this whole thing is I don't really know how to feel about it just yet. Another thing that I think that we as readers are supposed to be considering is the fact that one of State Preceptor's minion things that he says in the chaos is don't touch him, and then Hualian does anyway. And I just wonder if we as readers are supposed to think that because Hualian touched Hong Honger, that's what started this series of events that's eventually going to lead to Xianle's fall. Like he actually got the curse of death upon him or something. But I think it's important to note that despite this being said, it does not keep Hong Honger away. Because we see him later still praying at Hualian's temples, shrines, and still joining his army, if I'm correct about that part. Like, yeah, I don't know if he touches Hualian again, but he certainly doesn't stay away. Just a little note on that. And then, present-day Huachang. Like, after death, you could argue that Huachang is supremely lucky, while Hualian is cosmically unlucky. And luck has actually been in the story of a sort of manifestation of this good fortune or bad fortune. And that brings back the question, did they, sometime between where we are now in the story and the eventual fall of Hualian, did they exchange fates? Did Hualian somehow give his fortune, his good fortune, to this kid? Either on purpose or accidentally. And that's sort of the theory I'm currently working with. I think that Hualian's good fortune has somehow gone to Huachang. And I don't know if that's happened because of their situation currently, or if that is something that Hualian consciously does or unconsciously does at a later point. And on the opposite end of that, I wonder if them being together now in our present timeline helps cancel out some of that, because again, Huachang has extremely good luck. And if he wants to help Hualian solve things and do things, then wouldn't Huachang's good luck make sure that these things happened? In other words, Hualian, you have to stop letting Huachang go. You need to stay with him, darling. You need to stay with him. Hold his hand, stay close. But it also begs the question, like, if Huachang was able to share his luck, apparently, but it only lasts for a little bit, is it a case of the luck going back to the person who originally has it? Or is it a case of entropy? As in, that luck is just let out into the world and can be maintained by someone else at some point? I don't even know if this line of thought is going anywhere, if this is important at all. But I just thought I'd mention it, that I am thinking about the mechanisms around that, and just how exactly that might imply the exchange of fortunes between our main characters. And that would also explain, thinking back on it, why Huachang, is so indebted to Hualian, like he acts like he is. The words they make him say in the Dongwa that weren't actually in the book, so one where he's like talking about his luck and he's like, take it all. Maybe what he means is it's actually yours. I would definitely not mind if you took it back, because I am forever devoted to you. I also love you. Will you marry me? Anyway, so Hualian ascends, and that is the end of volume 2. Congratulations, everyone, we made it through. 2 down, 6 to go. Which also means it's time to pull out my bunch of volume 8 extras to find the postcard we need. Like, there's a lot of other different things in here, but I don't actually know when I'm able to look at them. Remind me, I think someone's told me, but I've just forgotten. There we go. And I think at this point, it's safe for me to actually look at the back as well. I'm going to, and it's just cute. It's super cute. It's Hua-chang as a fox with his glasses, and then Hualian is just out in his little bathing ring. That's adorable. This is such a summer mood. Actually, I feel like I'm a bit too late for this. It's already fall out here. The trees have been turning for a few weeks now. Some of them are already losing their leaves. We're actually going into winter soon. But anyway, let's maintain some of that summer feeling, up on my board at least, because we have officially started the Titanic era. So let's have a look at the cover. So when I first ranked all the covers, I didn't really rank this one very high, but the more I've been thinking about it, the more it's been growing on me. Like, there is certain implications of it. Also, I'm very fond of my Titanic jokes. So, volume 3. What we've got is a whole underwater sort of thing. And we've got Hualian staring longingly into each other's eyes underwater. Roy is there as well, and we are getting very, very close. On the spine, we've got this red pearl, I believe, which we now know is Hua-chang's red pearl, but originally it was Hualian's red pearl. Part of his costume from the God-pleasing Prince festival thing. Shenyuan festival with the God-pleasing parade. Gosh, so many words. So we've got that going. I've already promised that I would not read the back of these books going forward, even though I did it for volume 1 and 2. Volume 2, because I already knew, most of the plot going into it, except for the Xianle past part. But this time I am not confident that things will not be revealed while reading the back. And the back of a book, the blurb, it's there to make you want to read something, to heighten your anticipation and, maybe to help you kind of have a guideline for when, what is going to happen later in the book, because the first chapters are usually a setup. However, I also argue that these books were not supposed to be 8 volumes as they are in the English edition. And as far as I know, the author, Mu Xiangtong, let me never try to say the name of MXTX again like that. I don't think she was the one who wrote the blurbs for these, so the intent of the blurbs don't feel like the author's intent to me. And while the authors don't always write the blurbs, they're usually involved in them in some form or another. So I don't have the need to read the blurb. I'd like to read it after I finish reading the book, just to kind of see what I could have gleaned from it, just for fun. But they always have these little words at the top, which I think is so cute. Something to fight for, someone to live for. And we know what quote that is about, right? It's gotta be that quote, come on. Other than that, the jacket also features these wonderful blue colors and the pearl once again. Sea foam, colors also on the back of the book. Just overall, very cute. I like the themes of these. And I'm taking a page count, 415 pages, which is slightly longer than book 2 at its 389 pages. This is a slightly thicker one. Not the thick one, but slightly thicker. And I honestly don't know how long I'll be reading for today, because I haven't checked any chapter sizes. I'm just gonna go for it and see what happens. So, predictions for volume 3. First off, I've been talking about this scene a lot. Is this an actual book scene? Because the other 2 volumes have been, and I know that volumes 5 and 7 are not actual covers by the Taiwanese artist who did the Taiwanese covers, because the Taiwanese edition only had 6 books. But in theory, this one could very well be a scene from the story that we are going to witness. In which case, what is going on? Because I see water. The water is suspiciously not black. So, this could mean a lot of things. It could mean Showuru, It could be a show voodoo introduction into the story, like we're going into the water, so we were probably either falling into the water or, you know, on a boat somehow, which would involve the god of water and wealth, who is someone I've been keeping an eye on because he's so suspicious. Like, we've seen his silhouette in the opening for VOL Season 2. We know he's a part of the Three Tumors. We know he is Shi Qingshuan's older brother. And we also know that he is definitely one of those gods that Hualian thinks we're worshipping wrong. As in, Huachang's nickname for show voodoo is Water Tyrant, referring to the fact that he makes people basically pay him a fee in order for him to keep their boats afloat. If they don't pay, their ships might go down, their merchant boats. And that creates a relationship of servitude rather than a relationship of guidance, which is what Hualian would have advocated for. So show voodoo to me is definitely one of those gods who is the opposite of what Hualian would have aspired to be as a god. And also, therefore, a little antagonistic before he even appears on screen, you know? But water could also mean... You probably can't even read the note over here. It's black water sinking ships. Because if we are going back to the present day with the plot, as this cover kind of tells us, that means we still haven't gotten a Bai Wuxiang introduction. Oh my god, am I going to have to redo the board again? Anyway, we'll see as I read. But if we haven't had a Bai Wuxiang introduction yet, it might be about time to introduce the other calamity that we haven't been introduced to yet, that we know is around, right? Albeit very mysterious. So yeah, I think we're finally going to be involving show voodoo and hopefully black water into the story because of this cover. And then Hualian is gonna have some sort of moment underwater, apparently. Yeah, Hualian development happens. They are looking a lot closer on this cover than we've seen them so far, and I think that's good. That's a good indication. We have gotten to the point where Hualian has openly admitted to Huachang that he wonders if he's known him from before. He's absolutely right about that, and judging by all these hints that Huachang has been dropping left and right, including his little origin story of how he got kicked out, like he tells Hualian as Hong Hong that his, you know, the adults in his house, they thought he was kicked out. And that is exactly what he tells Hualian when he meets him as Sunlong. And like that, if that wasn't a hopeful hint that Hualian would kind of understand who he was, like, from the get-go. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know, but Huachang has been dropping these hints. He wants Hualian to recognize him by now. And yes, he's probably a little scared about it, because he is a pussy. The plot of Heaven Official's Blessing, if Huachang would tell Hualian already, would be like 1 book, I'm sure. 2, maybe. 2. We'll give them 2. I mean, we need time for the romantic stuff, okay? 3 if I get a wedding. But I am saying that it's about time that we are kind of developing that part of the relationship, knowing now that this is a romance story. Like, yeah. I mean, we've got a way to go, but we also know that they are heavily making out in the next book, so... Chop chop, Huachang, better get, holding. Beyond hand-holding, hold him. Hold your bro. Stare longingly into his eyes. God, Huachang looks so good on this one. But as for where we left off in the present, we left off just as Hualian was bringing his sword down on Qirong, who is occupying the body of Guji's father. So, I don't think Qirong will die, but will Hualian actually, you know, murder the father who Qirong is possessing? Because on one hand, that would be a really interesting turn of events. But on the other hand, I like the Hualian I know, like I don't feel like he would. I mean, yes, he's super distressed right now, but oh my gosh, if that happens, he's gonna be so depressed about it. So I don't know what's gonna happen. There might be like a timely interference, or this is a misdirection. Like we're supposed to be sitting here like, oh my gosh, he's gonna do it, but actually he's gonna hit something else or knock him out or whatever. Like he's gonna do something. Don't know what yet. It's not too important for me to worry about if that's gonna be the first thing that happens once we go into this book, but we'll see, because if Arc 2 was supposed to just be the past, I'm sort of hoping that a little bit more of this book will still be the past. And honestly, just so do you see these lines, guys? If you have a book, you can probably study this for yourself, but I think that the big fat grey line in the middle is the beginning of the next arc, meaning that we might still have a lot of past to get through before we get to go back to the present day. So yes, this book still might have these scenes, but it seems like half this book might still be the Xianle past, if I'm right about this. Gosh, maybe I shouldn't have allowed myself to do that. That kind of takes away a bit of that excitement, I guess, but we'll see once I open this book, won't we? Which will happen soon, I swear. But before that, I actually have a couple of questions to answer. Last time I didn't do questions or mentions or anything because I wanted to finish the video quickly. But this time around, I actually have collected a couple of questions that I need to answer, and I can't let them stay in the backlog for that much longer. So these questions are from the Gamblers Den over at my server, where my followers at the Temple of Corkboards get to bet on how long it's gonna take me to film a video. For instance, I'm already over an hour into recording right now. I don't know how many hours that's gonna turn into by the end of this, we'll see. And the person who gets the closest to my actual time gets to ask me anything. And if you do get to guess my actual time within the minute, you get to dare me to do something or give me a video idea, something that I have to do. And it's been great fun so far. I've got one of those waiting as well. I'm hoping to film that this week as well. But anyway, the first question of the day comes from the wonderful Nim, who is also coincidentally my junior official, my deputy, over at the Temple of Corkboards. And Nim says as follows. Hi Puffin, a little late, but here you go. You can open it now or on camera, which is what I'm doing. It's more fun that way, I feel. So it turned out making something fun was sliding too strongly into the dare category, but I hope what I came up with can still spark some joy, or at least interest. So let's go. Let's do it. This is just a plain old question, but I think it could be interesting to consider. How would you think the story genre would change if another character of your choosing was the main character instead of Hualian? At what point would the beginning be set, and what would you believe to be the main struggle of the chosen protagonist? Oh, this is a cute question. This is a fun question. Hope you have some fun with this. Credit to Arya for making it readable. Oh my gosh, my character of choice? That's so hard. I have so many characters I could choose. It could actually make a fun game, like if you did like this character and this random genre, what would the storytelling be like? But since I get to pick, I feel like it's kind of harder. But don't worry, I'll still do it. Like I've already mentioned that if Longchencho was the protagonist, this would have been a shonen. And the story probably would have started a little before Heaven Official's Blessing, with just him, you know, doing certain missions around, showing off his godly powers, I don't know, maybe going around with his friend, his junior official, his deputy. Like say maybe 100 years ago, sometimes before he became the God of the East. Like that is his big kind of like season 1 challenge, is getting that title. Like maybe I don't know how they picked the God of the East or the martial gods of the different places. We did talk a little bit about that, but it's not really a big thing. But like maybe there was like a tournament or like a decision that needed to be made, and he needed to make himself stand out somehow. And then he grows and becomes better at his job, and stuff. And then he keeps growing and he gets better at his job and stuff. And we have all these little like happy-ish flashbacks and then these ominous little flashbacks to his teacher, you know, who was super important in his life and whatever. And then he becomes the god of the East and everything is great and happy and shit. And then someone ascends. And it's really just like a blip on his radar for a little bit, like if he even like remembered that happened. But it becomes more than a blip on his radar when he's suddenly called into the Hall of Divine Might again, like John Woo's been gone for a while in the middle of these seasons or whatever. And now he's back and this other guy's back and Langton Jaw slept through that meeting, of course, but now he's going on a mission with this new guy and it's like introducing new cast. This is so exciting. He's so cool. He's got all my values and we're really vibing even when we're down here in Ghost City with the big bad Crimson Rainsalt Flower and all that. And then, you know, the whole function arc happens. Like season 2 of Langton Jaw's Heaven Official's Blessing is pretty much the same as season 2 of our Heaven Official's Blessing, just less staring longingly into your bro's eyes. Or maybe, who knows? Maybe we can have a little subplot. Maybe we can have that little bit of, you know, camaraderie, the stuff the fangirls go crazy for. With Langton Jaw and his little boy, his little man. But yeah, we kind of already talked about that one in that we mentioned it. What about for mooching? Everything seems like it would be like a career drama, but it would be infinitely more fun if we made it a rom-com too. In which case, function, you know, is either the other main character or you know, the male lead. I am so influenced by you guys. But yes, it would be a rom-com that would literally start with mooching, you know, having a stroll around the heavenly capital and then the bell falling onto his head. That's the first scene. And the comedy part of it is, you know, them getting together, having the whole plan about, you know, following Hualian and helping him out, dressed up as these junior officials and all that. Yeah, it's great. Mooching, function, rom-com stars. She Qingxuan would be a main character in a sitcom that also involves Ling Wen, Pei Ming, and She Wudu as, you know, best friends. Of course, Ming Yi also frequents as, you know, She Qingxuan's best friends. It would be named something catchy like Qingxuan and the Tumors, like a band name. Guest starring Hualian. This story would have started like season 1 would have been like hundreds of years ago. I don't know when She Qingxuan ascended. I feel like when he ascended and he started, you know, being in heaven. He ascended around the same time as his brother, right? It's about them moving into heaven and all the shit that happens. The whole thing about Immortals making fanfiction about him and his brother. That feels like a whole episode, I think. It's a recurring joke for the next several seasons. And Huachang, like need you even ask, his show would be a romantic fantasy drama in the veins of like a K-drama like Dokkaebi, the Goblin, where Huachang, you know, is this supernatural sort of creature, ghost king, who gets a call from his informant about Hualian's ascension. At which point we don't know who Hualian is to Huachang, but that's where the story starts. And we follow Huachang throughout the same story as TGCF, except it is heavily littered with these overly romantic flashbacks that shows his past with Hualian. And in the background plays this soundtrack, which, you know, they've probably spent half the budget of this drama to hire this one really famous singer to sing it for them. It plays in every single romantic scene ever, and also tops the playlist for like several months of the year because of this drama that everyone tunes in to watch, because Huachang is played by the same guy who plays him in the live action that we're never going to get to see. So anyway, like K-drama style romantic fantasy drama. Okay, yeah, I think I did well on that question. I had a lot of fun with that, actually. If you have any other ideas or anything for any of the other characters, let me know. Which character and what genre would their show be? So thank you so much to Nim for this question. That was so much fun to answer. And the next question from the most recent winner of our betting competition It's from Dark Yoko Kitsune. Hi Puffin, here is the question. You know the drill by now. Open the first box and then there's a second box which says open next before answering. Okay. First box. Who is your favorite character and why is it Chi-Rong? Name 5 things you love about it. Dark. Have you not been watching my videos? I know you're watching my videos. You let me know that you're watching my videos. Five things I love about Chi-Rong. Well, first off, I love how Hua-Chang beat his face in season 2. And oops, look at that, I ran out of fingers. You said to actually open the other box first. This is a joke. Just kidding, open the last box. Oh my gosh, the real question. You're trying to play games with me, Dark? You're trying to make my heart stop? Fucking Chi-Rong, man. The real question. We love your theories. Thank you so much. Please tell us in detail what your theory is on how Hualian's first kiss will go. What's the context and any extras you'd find interesting. Oh my gosh, so people reacted with the Pei Ming emoji that we just added to the server. I'll put it on screen so you can see it if you're not in the server. And yeah, now I suddenly understand why they reacted with the Pei Ming emoji. So Hualian's first kiss. Well, is it not book 4? Guys, so going by my theory that all the covers are scenes that actually happens, you know, in the book. Book 4 has them like aggressively making out on top of something. I need to actually look at the picture. I'm not grabbing the book. I have the postcard. I'm gonna sneak out the postcard so I can just look at just the cover. Is this it? Is this Hualian's first kiss? Because oh my god, I have no idea what has them making out so aggressively that the papers are flying, the ink is spilling, there's red all over this little scroll. But yeah, theories about Hualian's first kiss is that TGCF is a slow burn and someone threw a stick of dynamite into the embers. Like someone's resolves obviously snapped just here. So what are the details? Like, I don't even know where this is supposed to be. Like, are we at like a library, at like a desk? Are we at like Lingwen's palace? There's a lot of scrolls there, right? Like, are we sneaking around heaven for some reason? Because I feel like that might happen. We're sneaking around heaven. We're in Lingwen's palace for some reason. And we're trying to get some information about something. And I don't know, like you've seen this. You've seen this, right? Like, resolves are growing thin. Like, there is very little left of the resistance by the time this happens. Maybe we even have a confession by the end of book 3. Who knows? Or at least sometimes during this one. Because this is not just, you know, like, there's... This is not a chaste little I love you first kiss sort of thing. They've gone, you know, they've gone nuclear. They've just, this is dirty kind of making out. There's even like, there's even spit, like, there's spit in this drawer. Like the way he's holding him, oh my fucking god. Yeah, it's hot. It's very hot. So circumstances of Hualian's first kiss is that they are rushing around trying to solve some sort of thing, but also after their underwater stint scene, they are more and more, you know, getting closer and closer, getting to the point where there's very little left of the pretense of we're just friends, you know? It's getting harder and harder for Hua-Chang to hold back, for sure. And maybe while they're looking for this sort of information, maybe they're coming across something that stirs a memory or something, and so for some reason, something is confessed. They can't hold back anymore. Xianle has never felt this way about anyone ever. Hua-Chang has felt this way for 800 years. Cue messy makeout session in Lingwen's library, I suppose. Nothing really surprising about this, being my running theory, but yeah. Because TGCF has been such a slow burn so far, I think that what we're seeing on cover 4, that's gonna be our first kiss. And I think it's going to be glorious. Thank you so much, Doc, for your questions, and with all that out of the way, if you would like to be able to ask me a question like this that I will bring up in a video, consider joining my temple as a follower, as a devotee of the Temple of Corkboards, which you can do by donating to me on Ko-fi, which dozens of other people have already done. This time around, I do have one new entry to the Temple of Corkboards, as well as several updates and shoutouts, so let's get the ball rolling. First up, Bamboo. Thank you so much for joining the Temple of Corkboards. I will be putting your name up today, as well as this flower, because of your generous donation. And welcome back to the wonderful Kea. Thank you so much for your repeat donation. I have upgraded your name tag, so it will be a little bit more visible. I've got a few hearts to hand out as well today. This first one is for the wonderful Willow. Thank you so much for coming back this month. This pink one is going up for Shori. Thank you so much again for your monthly donation, Shori. I hope you're doing well. And the last heart of today goes up for Mia Rose, another person who's been super generous with me. Thank you so much. Your heart collection is actually insane right now. I might have to exchange them for a cherry blossom at some point. Someone who has earned themselves an upgrade from the hearts is the wonderful Iwana. Iwana, thank you so much for your constant support over the last few months. I have put this cat guardian up by your name now. Very happy about that one. He's so cute. Someone else who's been super generous with me lately and who will also be receiving a cat guardian is the wonderful Xianle, whose name tag is also getting upgraded so that I can see it better. I have another upgraded name tag for the wonderful Toasted Toad, who will also be receiving this wonderful little guardian butt. For your name tag, thank you so much for all your support. If you look very closely, you'll see that this dog's tail is shaped like a heart. And this next name tag upgrade is for the wonderful Shady. Thank you so much for spending time with my videos, for leaving me these wonderful messages. I hope you're having a great day. And I hope that this little cat guardian butt will make your day even better. But wait, I have a couple of more pins that need to go up on the board. And the first one is this fruit that I peeled for Ouija, who already has so many pins, oh my gosh. Thank you so much for your generosity. I hope you're continuing to enjoy these videos and that I can continue making videos that you will enjoy for a long time going forward. Gosh, I hope you're not allergic to citrus. And the last pin to go up on the board for today is for the wonderful Rennie. Rennie, I got you this gorgeous little porcupine pin to go up by your name, because I quite like it and I think it's very cute. And your pin collection is kind of huge. Gosh, I need new pins already. What am I gonna do if I run out of pins to give you guys? For now, your name tag is just, it's so full. It's so full. I don't know how long I can keep this system going, guys. If you guys know any nice pins that you would like to see on the board, how about you drop me a link in the survey? And ta-da! That is the board for this time as we start rolling into Volume 3 of Heaven Official's Blessing, which is the next thing we're gonna do. I'm gonna put this away. I am so excited. Gonna get a drink, gonna get a little bit of a snack, and then I'll be ready. See you in a little bit. I'm so ready. Okay, I've got my new notebook ready, and I just remembered I forgot to give you guys the final tallies for Volume 2. So just to let you know, Volume 2 for the Gege tally ended up at a whopping 37. If I add on the 14 Geges from Volume 1, we've hit a total of 51 Geges in Volume 1 and 2, directed at Hualian by Huachang. As for the Laugh or Cries, I am very happy that there has been Laugh or Cries or allusions to it in the past as well. We're at a total of 12 Laugh or Cries, with 5 appearing in all of Volume 2, which is less than Volume 1. Let's see if this picks up or if it stays at this constant 5 to 7 Laugh or Cries. And lastly, our fun little ellipse tally. We had 16 ellipse answers from Hualian in Volume 2, and at a total of 43 altogether, 20 for others. way less than volume 1, so maybe MXDX kind of settled a little bit out of this sort of ellipsy reply. We'll see if this is a thing that keeps going in the next volumes. Definitely less prevalent in volume 2. We're doing another Hualian pen today, this time a winter-themed one. Like he's wearing like a fur-lined cloak or something anyway, that's what it looks like. So he's here to help me take notes. There are butterflies in my stomach, actually. I am so excited to be delving into this. This book is entirely new to me. Everything that's being thrown at me from now on is completely new. With the exception of that one scene from the short film that we haven't encountered yet. So here's to hoping that the first pages of this book will still be in the past. Or if not, at least we'll know what will happen to Chi-Rong. So let's do it. Oh my gosh, I forgot to go to this in-between page. It's such a cute page. With Huachang and Hualian doing laundry. And you've got Huachang's like got his top off. He's only got like the white robe, but he's in his he's got his eye patch and everything. Oh my gosh, it's so cute. I love these little pages. Heaven Official's Blessing, Volume 3. Chapter 28. Fishing for offerings, the boar meets the crown prince. Fishing? I mean, we are underwater scene, or we're still talking crown prince, but you know, he's referred to as the crown prince in the other chapters as well, the earlier ones as well. How about I stop edging myself and I just read? Okay, let's do it. Chapter 28, let's go. Unveil! With that booming announcement, an enormous bright red brocade dropped to the ground. Roaring cheers erupted from the crowd of thousands, shooting straight to the heavens. This has gotta be back in the past. This was a divine statue of the crown prince crafted in gold, yes. We know from the prologue that Hualian's father had thousands of temples erected in his name. And I did comment about this in the prologue because one of the things I'm worried about is this act. His father doing this very closely ties the new, you know, the rising star, the god who has arisen from this country, you know, basically tying religion and Hualian's prestige very closely to the acts of the royal family, to the taxpayer money, like to state affairs, basically. And that might not necessarily be a good thing. But yes, here we are in Xianle, so of course it's gold. It's gotta be gold. It held a sword in one hand and a flower in the other, symbolizing the virtues of the prince himself. The power to end the world, but with a heart as gentle as a flower. The face of that statue was soft and beautiful, with long, elegant brows and thin, clean lips that curved slightly with a ghost of a smile. One could describe it as affectionate but not frivolous, neutral but not indifferent. It was a compassionate and handsome face. This was the 8,000th temple of the crown prince within the kingdom of Xianle. 8,000! Yeah. So, Nanyang, Fengshen as an ascended god, had 8,000 temples at present. It's taken him hundreds of years. Hualian has 8,000 temples within the first 3 years of his ascension. And that's not, I mean, yes, he has a huge following. I guess he really does have a huge following. But again, this tying of his godhood to the state, to the kingdom this closely. It's giving me iffy feelings. Everything makes me very wary, and this is one of the things that's been making me wary since I read the prologue. So here it is in full force. 3 years, exactly. We're 3 years after Ascension. We are over here on the timeline. First Ascension, we're here. Between first time Ascension and first time banishment. And before the Xianle... Xianle falls 3 years later. Are we already here? We're already here? This is where it all starts. This is where it all begins. We have a 3-year time skip. Oh. I want to say, oh yeah, but I'm kind of feeling, oh no. Okay. 3 years after Ascension, there were already 8,000 temples raised in his name. Such a passionate following was unheard of in all of history and likely would never be rivaled in the future. Truly, he was the one and only. However, this 8,000th temple couldn't boast the most glamorous divine statue of the Crown Prince. The first palace of Xianle was built on the summit of Mount Taizang, where the Crown Prince lived and trained in his youth, which had been renamed to Crown Prince Summit. It was also there that the first divine statue of the Crown Prince was sculpted, which the king himself personally unveiled. That divine statue of the Crown Prince was over 15 meters high, its craftsmanship legendary. Rather than simply setting for gilding its surface, it was built entirely of pure, solid gold, truly worthy to be called golden. That's probably not a smart way to build a statue like that big. I guess you could do it. It's very the Hobbit movies is what I'm imagining right now. The crowds of devotees were endless within the Palace of Xianle, and so dense that they even spilled over the building's threshold. The incense vessel stationed before the palace was stuffed to bursting with incense sticks, both long and short. Out of necessity alone, the palace's donation box was built much bigger and stockier than average. If it hadn't been built so large, it would have been filled with offerings before the day was over, and those who came later wouldn't be able to donate. In the courtyard of the temple, there was a clear pond, which was swimming with thrown coins that shimmered brightly in the water. Because of all the coins being thrown by devotees, many of the old turtles residing in the pond didn't dare to peep their heads out anymore, with those projectiles constantly bouncing off their shells. No matter how the temple's resident cultivators asked people not to do it, their efforts were fruitless. Yeah, this is kind of showing how crazy this is. Like, Hualian's ascension was, as described at the end of Volume 3, it was the biggest thing to happen in the Three Realms. And here we are seeing how absolutely insane his following is, to the point where it's actually disturbing the local wildlife. Oops. But I wonder how long this would last for, considering how this is literally only a few years after he ascended. Only a few years after these big events that people were alive to witness, you know? Like, if this had been left to go on for like a few decades, would it have been the same? Would it have been bigger, brighter, better? I don't know, like, at the same time, yes, this is very much a little bit of nepotism in that the king is building all these temples, but Hualian is Hualian, and the way he is, the way he acts, he's bound to somehow find people who'd want to follow him. I mean, look at the whole Banyu arc. He ended up with this one kid who was like, yeah, I'm gonna build a temple for you. I'm gonna follow you. And then all these people in Pucci village as well. Like, he's again, 3 times ascended. He's just bound for godhood. The universe is saying that this is his thing. Plum trees bloomed in abundance within the massive red walls of the temple, their branches tied with countless bright red prayer ribbons. They painted a vibrant scene, waves of flowing crimson amongst a sea of blossoms. Crimson, eh? And in the interior of the temple, Hualian sat with upright poise just below his own divine statue. He watched over the milling crowd. No one could see him, but he could see and hear their chatter. How come the Temple of the Crown Prince doesn't have any cushions for us to prostrate? Yeah, because Hualian wouldn't want them to. That's literally what he's been saying for the last chapter. Yeah, even the temple master said we can't prostrate. The temple is already unveiled, so what's going on? This must be your first time at a palace of Xianle. All palaces of Xianle are like this. I heard that after His Highness ascended, he sent dreams to many temple donors, and to this very temple's master, telling them not to have devotees prostrate. So none of the Crown Prince temples have places to do so. Although no one could see him, Hualian nodded. However, a few of the visitors laughed. Where's the logic in that? Aren't we meant to prostrate before gods? That must just be a rumor. That's right, we must kneel, another visitor agreed. Only by kneeling can we show our sincerity, right? Thus, one took the lead and knelt down. Soon after, many others followed suit and knelt on the ground. The hundreds and thousands of people squished inside and outside the Great Hall all started kowtowing before the divine statue, their forms rising and falling, muttering as they silently prayed for blessings. Hualian wordlessly slunk away. Never mind, we'll take it slowly, he thought. Yeah, so now that Hualian is God, one of the things that he wants to implement is that we should not be prostrating, we should not be casting ourselves down before the gods, because, again, he wants more of a sort of instructor sort of relationship with his followers. He does not want to be worshipped like as an act of servitude. But this is, the mindset of the people to begin with. So of course, it's gonna take time. It's gonna take time. But that is one thing that gods can do. They can appear in dreams. We know that Muching appears in dreams when he's not happy with the statues made of him. And Hualian appears in dreams when he is instructing people not to make the temples have cushions so people can bow down before his statues. Another thing I wonder is that if there are this many worshippers of Hualian now, would a lot of these worshippers have originated as, Junwu worshippers in this same area in Xianle? Because Junwu was worshipped in Xianle as a god. Not that it's not possible to worship multiple gods, it seems, but being a follower of the Prince of Xianle, like your donations would go there and no longer to John Woo. We don't actually know what John Woo's response to all of this is just yet. I wonder if he'll appear in the story now that Hualian is ascended. I would like to know a little bit about John Woo 800 years ago as well. The next moment, a great cacophony of voices came crashing down on him from all around like a massive wave. Achieve a high score. This year I must achieve a high score. If I get it, I will fulfill the vow I swore to you. And that comes with a footnote about high score referring to the Imperial State exam. Okay, I thought it might be something like that. High scores would be placed in various government positions. When praying to a deity for something, it was full custom to vow to do something if your desire was granted, usually to make a donation. I pray for safe travels. The girl I like fancies my Shesiong. Please make him uglier, please, I beg you. Oh my god. Fuck, I refuse to believe that I can't give birth to a big chubby brat. There were all kinds of prayers. Hualian was getting a massive headache just listening and hurriedly cast a spell with a hand seal, blocking out the voices entirely. Silence had only just fallen when there was a sudden shout, and the man clad in black came dashing out from the back of the palace, his hands covering his ears. What the hell are all these prayers? He roared. The worshippers didn't notice the man and continued their kowtowing. Is that function? Hualian sighed and patted his shoulder. Thanks for your hard work, Function. It was Function. He said with a smile. Such an exuberant palace of Xianle. Every day, Hualian heard prayers that numbered in the thousands. At first, he charged forth with a vigor born from the novelty of his new position. He didn't care whether the matters were big or small. He worked through each one personally, but after a while, there really were way too many prayers coming in. So he divided the work and tossed some into the laps of function and mooching. After reviewing the prayers to determine which were within their purview and which could be ignored, they would pass the important matters back to him. Once mooching finished his review, he would report back without ever voicing a complaint. Function, on the other hand, just couldn't understand why there were so many who blindly submit prayers for petty business. They would even bring entreaties for harmonious bedchamber matters to the palace of Xianle. Yeah, you're the new hotshot god around. Hualian was a martial god, not a marital one. Easy mistake to make, come on. And certainly couldn't manage such things. His Pei-Ming is under yet, shouldn't he be handling these things? And with prayers like these coming non-stop, the other heavenly officials eventually began taking offense. They secretly accused Hualian and his coterie, I guess that's a fancy word for a crew, of hogging the outhouse without taking a dump. That is certainly an expression. That is, for taking on matters they had no jurisdiction over and roping in devotees they had no business taking. To those accusations, Hualian had no rebuttal. Yeah, this kind of answers my question, but in regards of the other heavenly officials. So, even in Xianle, there were probably several gods being worshipped for different things, but with Hualian's sudden, popularity, everyone is turning to him for everything. And it's getting to be a bit much, it seems. But it's not, it's not Hualian's fault. It's just the way he's just super popular right now. Function still covered his ears with his hands, even though the gesture wasn't helping one bit. Your Highness, why do you have so many female devotees? Yeah. Still seated, Hualian crossed his arms in his sleeves as clouds of incense lingered around him. He replied with a smile. What's wrong with that? Beauties abundant like clouds are pleasing to the eyes. Function's face dropped. It's not pleasing at all. It's like these female devotees' only prayers are wishing to look nicer, marry nicer, give birth to a nice son. Nothing of importance. Even the sight of them gives me a headache. Hualian grinned and was about to respond, when suddenly there was a commotion among the crowd. The two looked out and heard someone speak in a hushed voice. Prince Xiaojing. Fucking Qiwang is here. Prince Xiaojing has come. Let's get out of here. Prince Xiaojing is here. When the people heard the name Prince Xiaojing, it was as if they heard the devil himself. Mood. Everyone's faces drained of color, and the crowd dispersed like birds. In but an instant, like a tornado had blown past, most of the worshippers who were paying respects in the hall had fled. Soon after, a young man crossed the threshold. He had a decadent sort of appearance, lavishly dressed in brocade and a cape, and he swagged forward with a glazed offering lamp in his hands. Yeah, just a second, wondering if... So, Qiwang is not related to the king directly, right? He's only related to Hualian's mother. So he would not be in talks of being an heir to the throne, right? Any possible heirs would have been related to the father's side of the family, right? His face resembled Hualian's as long as you didn't look at his eyes. But upon seeing that arrogant, conceited gaze, one could easily discern between the two. It was none other than Qirong. Qirong had reached the age of 17 or 18 by now and had matured in both his appearance and bearing. He had finally managed to put on an air of nobility, at least somewhat. He stepped through the doors but forbade the entry of any member of his retinue. Holding the lamp with both hands, he crossed into the great hall and swept aside his cape before kneeling on the clean floors. He raised the lamp to his forehead and prostrated solemnly. The two on top of the altar shared a look. Fengshen smacked his lips, and Hualian understood the annoyance in his eyes. 3 years ago, when Hualian first left the imperial capital to travel the world, Qirong was still in detention. Upon his return, he hadn't yet had the chance to see his little cousin before he suddenly and rumblingly ascended in his sleep that very night. Over the last 3 years, Hualian sent a number of dreams to his parents, the state preceptor, and others. He also sent one to Qirong, admonishing him to be kind to others from then on, to keep his behavior in check and avoid causing trouble. Thus, Qirong had been actively commissioning the construction of temples everywhere and offering donations and lamps for good merits. Although he worked hard, sincere to the bone, he would still stir up trouble every now and then, but Fengshen was the one who'd have to clean up after him. Because of this, Hualian could understand Fengshen's irritation. Yeah, okay, so Qirong is cleaning up his act, but he is really... yeah, it seems like Qirong, ironically, is one of the driving forces behind the building of these temples as well. Ironically, because he is also one of the driving forces in burning them down later. And here's the mention of how Fengshen was still sent down to clean up his messes, because he's still making ruckuses out of things. On the floor, Qirong finished paying his respects and started talking, or rather whining, aloud. Cousin Crown Prince, this is the 500th light I've offered. I'm such a loyal little brother. So when will you come see me? Even a dream would be fine. Yifu and Yimu both miss you dearly, but you ignore us. Truly high and mighty and cold. He did not notice that Fengshen was standing right there, reminding Hualian of the rules about such things. Ignore him. The Heavenly Emperor told you that unless it's a matter of great import, heavenly officials are not allowed to show themselves before mortals without permission. Families especially must be avoided. Don't worry, I know, Hualian said. Okay, so I guess that's a rule that might be useful to have. But at the same time, my first impression of that is, who made that rule? And considering how Hualian is maybe 20-ish now, 3 years later, right? He's been ascended and been a god for 3 years. But he was a bit of a mama's boy. Of course, he's got to be missing his family. Why is that rule in place? Because my first impression, again, is that that's a rule that helps create that boundary between gods and humans. Or rather, gods and mortals. Like, yeah, interfering a lot can be very messy, I suppose. But again, who made these rules? If these are the rules of the universe for good reasons, it doesn't seem like that the way they're presented. They seem like they're a set of rules that heaven just follows. And rules like these are exactly what Hualian would not want to exist, you know? Though, of course, I'm sure there's like a sort of logic that makes sort of sense behind it, and that he's like just decided that he wants to follow. Because he's already, he's had this job for 3 years, and one of the things that he's already noticing is that he can't help everyone. He can't do everything by himself. Qirong rose to his feet, holding the lamp, reached for a brush, and started writing on the lamp with his head lowered. Since both Hualian and Fengshen could distinctively recall all their past traumas with Qirong, they couldn't help approaching him to check what he was writing. When they saw that it was something normal, like I pray for the country's prosperity and good weather, and not a prayer for some family to be beheaded before the whole marketplace or something similar, the two breathed a sigh of relief. They really have no expectations for him. And honestly, same. Watching Qirong write stroke after stroke so carefully and properly, Hualian was reminded of something. When Qirong first returned to the palace with his mother, there was an incident. A group of royals and nobles were traveling to Mount Taizang to pray for blessings. Qirong's mother had only just escaped back to the palace in shame after eloping with a vulgar peasant, and since then she hadn't dared show her face. Nonetheless, she still wanted blessings for her son and to have him experience the outside world world, rather than being shut inside with her and turning into an ignorant nobody. And so she begged the queen to take Qirong along. Although attempts were made to keep things under wraps, royal scandals always shot out faster than an arrow. There wasn't anyone in the imperial capital who didn't know what had happened to that mother and her son. Thus, many of the noble children on the trip deliberately left Qirong out, not playing with him or talking to him. That's the result of adults. And that's only contributing to Qirong's isolation and consequent behaviors. By refusing him the chance to socialize. Like, yes, I don't expect he would be very good at it, but not giving him that chance to practice at this very young age is not good. And it's happening because, adults talk and they're telling their kids not to play with this kid because that's bad. And kids will take that as, that kid's bad, better not play with him, because mama said so. Like, no joke, a lot of the bullying behavior that we witness in schools are kids emulating a lot of the behavior they see from their parents as well. The way you, as an adult, talk about others around children, the way you treat others, even, it could be people in town, could be celebrities on TV, all of that influences how your child think about behaving out in the world. But yes, back to this. This is already, not good. Hualian saw a swing set and ran over to play, and all the children of the same age ran after him. They took turns pushing the crown prince on the swings and considered it an honorable task. When Hualian swung to the highest point, he inadvertently looked down and saw Qirong hiding in the queen's shadow, head peeking out and eyes watching him with envy. Once they reached the Palace of Divine Might and offered their light, the grown-ups went to beg the state preceptor for fortunes, or for the deciphering thereof, or conversed amongst themselves. This left the children alone in the hall to offer up small lamps in play. It was Qirong's first time meeting the queen, and he didn't know she had already offered a light in his and his mother's name. He saw how beautiful the lamps were and wanted to offer one up for blessings too. He was young and didn't understand much, so he asked those around him how to write words of prayer for his mother. But the children from Qirong's branch of the family detested him, having been influenced by their elders into the belief that both mother and son had shamed the family. This is... I'm just writing this book as I go along, honestly. And so they decided to trick him. Fucking knew it. Hualian had been focused on writing his own lamp, but when he finally put down his brush, he heard giggling from behind him that didn't sound kind. He turned his head and was greeted by the sight of Qirong with his hands covered in ink. The boy was holding a lamp like a precious treasure, his face bright with a smile. He was about to offer the light, but on that lamp, these were the words written in ugly scribbles. I pray that my mother and I return soon to the heavens. Qirong. God, I fucking hate this. Hualian flew into a rage and broke that lamp on the spot. He himself wasn't very old at the time, but all the noble children present fell to their knees in terror, too afraid to speak. Fucking thank you, Hualian. Thank you. Once he regained his composure, Hualian personally rewrote a prayer on a new lamp for Qirong, and no one dared play any tricks after that. Later, when they descended the mountain, Hualian went on the swings again. This time, Qirong emerged from behind the queen and pushed him of his own initiative. He was shorter than Hualian, but he pushed especially enthusiastically. He still gazed at him from below, except now his gaze had transformed from envy into one of worship. After that, he became Hualian's tail, wagging along behind his cousin Crown Prince. Again, I don't even know what to say. Qirong's whole existence is just a tragedy mainly caused by adults who fail to protect children, even their own children, and adults who make choices and say things and make allowances that they shouldn't have made. Some being downright cruel, others with good intent. And it's... And the consequences is what Qirong is. And it's a tragedy is what it is. And having a child again in this situation, grow up to be a noble. It must be said that Qirong had once been fairly normal, but somehow and somewhere along the way he went progressively further astray. That being said, in the past 3 years, Hualian had to deal with too many people and too many matters, so he had no time for relations of old and wouldn't know whether Qirong had improved. While Hualian was reminiscing, Qirong had already offered his light and was getting ready to leave the hall. Unexpectedly, as he backed away with a footnote, retreating without turning and showing one's back is a sign of, sign of respect, like you're facing the statue and you're retreating without turning your back to it. I get it. So he backed away and he bumped into someone. Qirong staggered, then whipped around, cussing before he'd even seen who it was. What the hell? Are you blind, or did you die standing there and forgot to move aside? The moment he opened his mouth, Hualian and Fengxin both put their hands over their foreheads and thought, he hasn't changed at all, still the same Qirong. It might have been because he had lived with his father until he was 5 and couldn't help but be influenced by the rowdy market environment and his father's violent temper. But even long after, when the queen patiently tried to educate Qirong, the moment he got agitated, he'd reveal his true form, as the state preceptor had once put it. But then again, the state preceptor is really not someone I'd ask about child rearing. Okay, so we've got a picture. And we know that this someone is a man standing behind Qirong, looking a little bit worse for wear. And he's holding a sack, but not really looking mad or anything, or worried or anything. Does he not know? Everyone else ran away when they saw Qirong. Does he not know who Qirong is? The one who Qirong bumped into was a ragged young man of 24-25. He carried a simple satchel, and his straw shoes were so worn they were almost rimless and soleless. Okay, so pretty poor peasant sort of person. This young man's face was wan and sallow, his lips dry and cracked, his posture slumped. However, his expression was bright. His physique was thin but not weak, and his eyes were shining. "What is this place?" he asked. Yeah, he's not from here. A traveler? "This is the palace of Xianle, the temple of the Crown Prince," Qirong replied. The man started mumbling. Temple of the Crown Prince. So this is the Imperial Palace? He saw the divine statue inside, its shimmering golden light reflecting on his face. "Is that gold?" he asked. Seeing how glamorous the temple was, he had mistaken it for the Imperial Palace. A guard was approaching to drive him away, and he answered, "Of course it's gold, but the Temple of the Crown Prince is a temple. It's not the same as the Imperial Palace. You don't even know where you are. Where did a barbarian like you come from?" Why? Why we're being so mean? Fucking hell. Humans. "Then where's the Imperial Palace?" the man asked. Qirong narrowed his eyes. "Why do you ask?" The man replied, quite bluntly. "I need to go to the palace and see the king. I have something to tell him." Qirong and the guards burst out laughing, disdain clear on their faces. "Where did this country bumpkin come from? You want to do what? At the palace? See the king? As if you can see him just because you want to. They probably won't even let you through the gates when you get there." The man didn't seem affected by the taunt. "I'll try. Maybe it'll work." What is going on here? So we have someone who is from outside of the main city for sure. And he's come to the kingdom. Is he the... Let's see. The title was like The Crown Prince Meets the Boar or something? The boar meets the Crown Prince. Boar, not as in pig-like creature, but like a boar. How to describe it? Like, boorish as the adjective description. A rough and bad-mannered person. Oxford Dictionary. Though maybe that is Qirong, but that wouldn't be a meeting, that would be a reunion. "Then go ahead," Qirong laughed heartily, before purposely pointing in the wrong direction. Holy... "Thanks," the man said. He adjusted his satchel, then turned to walk out of the hall. When he reached the stone bridge, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. Through the clear pond water, piles and piles of coins could be seen at the bottom. The young man seemed to think for a moment, and in the next second he leapt over the bridge railing and jumped into the pond. He was extremely agile, and once he was in the water, he bent down and started fishing up handful upon handful of coins, stuffing them into the satchel in his arms. Since they had never seen anyone who dared steal a god's offering before, Hualian and Fengshen both stood in stunned shock. Qirong was also taken aback, but he immediately erupted in anger. He rushed to the bridge and slapped at the railing, yelling, "What the fuck? What are you doing? Someone pull him out! What the actual fuck?" Oh my fucking god, Qirong. I'll give him that, he's entertaining to read. Several guards immediately jumped into the water to pull the man out, but he was unexpectedly quite skilled in martial arts, throwing punches and kicks, and shockingly, no one could do anything to him. Qirong was jumping up and down in rage, and none of the cultivators in the temple yard knew what to do. That young man fished up enough coins to fill his satchel, then slung it over his shoulder. He moved to climb out, but accidentally slipped on some moss, falling back into the water with a large splash. It was only then that the guards managed to seize him and wrangle him back ashore. Does this man know he is stealing, or was he just like, doesn't understand why all these coins are lying about? Qirong didn't pause a moment in his fit. He kicked the man, yelling, "You dare steal this money!" Fengshen was already standing close by when Qirong raised his leg, and seizing the right moment he blocked the kick. While Qirong's kick looked vicious, it actually landed lightly. Although Qirong couldn't see who was playing tricks on him, he still felt like something was off, as if there was a ghost clinging to his leg. The feeling persisted as he violently kicked several more times, and he was left perturbed at the lack of impact. The young man seemed to have swallowed water, and he coughed a few times. "The money was just lying in the pond, so why can't I use it to save people?" Unsatisfied with his kick, Qirong finally stopped from sheer irritation. "Save who? Who are you? Where'd you come from?" Okay, save people. So this guy's come from somewhere that's needing help, that needs aid, which is why he's traveled to the capital to see the king. But he doesn't understand any of the city etiquette. And we know people throwing coins into ponds and stuff. Like that's something most of us have encountered before, so we know not to pick them up, no matter if it's for religious or just for fun reasons. But this guy is just, he's seeing all these riches and it's just lying around everywhere. So I genuinely don't know if he understands that he is stealing or no. Anyway, save who are you? Where did you come from? He only asked so he could declare the young man guilty of a crime and throw him in prison, but the young man was an honest soul, and he answered the question with equal honesty. My name is Long Ying. I'm from Yong'an. Are you What is actually happening here? My name is Long Ying. I'm from Yong'an, he answered. We're going through a drought. There's no water, the crops won't grow, and everyone's starving because there's no income. There's water here and food and money. You use gold to build statues and throw coins in the water, so why can't you share some with us? Yong'an was a large city within the kingdom of Xianle. Hualian rose to his feet, his expression grave. Fengshen, there's a drought going on in Yong'an. How come I didn't hear of this? Fengshen turned to look at him. I don't know, I didn't hear about it either. Let's ask Muqing later, alright? And that was the end of chapter 28. That was really fucking short. Are you kidding me? What? Okay. Yong'an. As in Yong'an, who is gonna be leading the uprising. We're already here, guys. Oh my lord, where are my pens? We have a character, a man named Long Ying. Coincidence? Hualian, you literally helped name this kid. Do you know this person? Do you remember this person? Did you erase him from your memory? Long is the family name of the people of Yong'an. But considering how Yongan now is, you know, just a city within Xianle, does that mean that this guy, he's like Long Chen Cho's great something grandfather? Is that who he is? Fucking Long Ying from Yong'an. And for some reason, we have another fucking mooching cliffhanger. Function and Xianle don't know about this. Let's ask Mooching later, because Mooching probably fucking knows, because that's what he does. He's the only person to know shit. But oh my gosh, that's such a short chapter, but that starts so much. Oh my gosh. This is the start, guys. We're facing it. We're in front of the fall of Xianle, and I bet this is where it starts. We have this young man who's come from Yong'an, that's experiencing a drought. People are starving because they haven't been able to harvest crops because of this lack of water. And he arrives in the capital of Xianle, where everything is just gilded. There is money in the water is overflowing. Like, I can't tell what, like, they make it seem like Yong'an is a city, like, he would know some customs, I feel, but he might be like a proper country person from around Yong'an, you know? It's hard to tell. We don't know that yet. We don't know what kind of person he is yet. But he seems like he's not a person who's well off to begin with. But he's still traveled all the way here, and he's seeing all these sights. And I bet you that's going to be the start of some heavy resentment. Because I also bet you that this is not going to get fixed. This drought or whatever, it's not going to get fixed. Holy shit. It was a very short chapter of only like a few pages. We're talking 13 pages, it's like nothing. We haven't even started. We gotta keep going. We gotta keep going, guys. We have resolved nothing. But we are at the start of something. We're at the precipice. We're going down. We're going downhill from here, guys. I can already feel it. Oops. But we are not stopping. So here we go. Toppled golden statue, oh no. The boar buries the suffering son? The boar buries the suffering son. Who's the suffering son? The golden statue getting toppled might be like an ominous sign, I suppose. Okay. Xianle. Call him over right this instant, Hualian said. Function pressed the index and middle fingers of his right hand against his temple, connecting with Mooching in the spiritual communication array. Out in the temple yard, Qirong clicked his tongue. Yong'an? So you crawled out of that middle of nowhere dump? Barren lands really do produce unruly fruit. Think you can rob the gods just because you're poor? Then I won't steal, Long Ying said. I will pay my respects and worship this god of yours right now. I will kneel and kowtow and beg him to give me money to save the lives of the people of my hometown. But will he give it to me? Qirong was momentarily stumped. He grumbled inwardly. If I say yes, is this guy gonna run away with all that money with full conviction? Thus he replied. His Highness the Crown Prince is a god now, and gods are busy as hell. Who has the time to mind unruly people like you? Long Ying nodded slowly at this. I didn't think he'd care either. It's not like we never prayed or begged. But it didn't work at all. Those who are meant to die still die. Hualian was shaken. You, so disrespectful in the halls of a god, aren't you afraid of his condemnation? A cultivator shouted. It doesn't matter anymore, Long Ying replied. He can condemn me if he likes. I'm no longer afraid of his neglect, so why should I be afraid of his condemnation? Qirong gave a wave. A number of guards waiting on the side rushed forward, surrounded that young man, and started beating him down. Fengxin was still hard at work, softening their attacks where he could, so it only appeared that Long Ying was being pulverized. But the man himself just looked confused. He didn't dodge nor evade, and only occasionally raised his hands to protect the satchel on his back. Meanwhile, Qirong had grabbed a handful of melon seeds and munched as he jiggled his leg. Fucking hell, Qirong. Beat him! Beat him hard in the name of this prince! Truly the very image of a villain. At hearing him call his own title, Lang Ying's head shot up. You're a prince? Prince of what? Do you live in the palace? Can you meet with the king? I'm your granddaddy, Qirong spat. Oh my fucking god. You still think you can see the king, don't you? His Majesty's got a million things on his plate. He ain't got time for you. Lang Ying craned his neck up. Why hasn't he got time for me? The gods don't have time and neither does his Majesty. So who has the time to hear me? Just who should I go to? He demanded, stubbornly. Does the king know how many people have died in Yong'an? Do the people of the imperial capital know? If they know, why would they rather throw money in the water than give it to us? It's our money and we'll spend it as we will, Qirong scoffed. Even if we skip it over the water like stones, it's nobody's damn business. Why do we have to give it to you? What, you're entitled to it just because you're poor? There was some logic in what he said, but it was incredibly inappropriate for the time and place. Hualian was about to find a way to seal Qirong's mouth shut when a black-clad youth rushed over from behind the palace. Your Highness sent for me. Hualian waved him over. Muqing, come quickly. In all the prayers you've reviewed recently, have you heard anything about a drought in Yong'an? Muqing was taken aback. No, I haven't. As he continued to manage his own tasks, Feng Xin snapped. How couldn't you? Refugees have already fled here. It was said in a tone so sharp that Muqing's face stiffened. He replied in a hard voice. I told the truth. There really wasn't anything. Are you trying to say I'm purposely withholding information? Well, did you hear anything yourself? I'm on the duty of the Temple of the Crown Prince during odd months, and you're on duty for even months. If there really were people from Yong'an praying for the end of a drought, there's no reason the drought-related prayers would only come during the odd months, while you heard nothing. That's logical, I suppose. Yeah, so I was surprised now. I thought maybe Muqing was kind of handling it, or trying to handle it, for some reason, but it seems like this was really not even mentioned. Like, this guy, Lang Ying, is saying that they've been praying about this, but have they been praying to Hualian? Like, I suppose to a peasant, if that is what he is, who you pray to doesn't really matter. What matters is whether or not your prayer is responded to. But yeah, I have no idea. This is the first time either one of the three have heard of this drought. But if Yong'an is a part of Xianle, I don't know. Could the prayers have been, like, handed off to other gods because they had temples in the area and they've just not done anything? Because we know that heavenly officials are fucking useless. Anyway, Feng Xin paused and realized that was certainly true. I didn't say you did it on purpose. You always overthink these things. Well, this time I was overthinking a little bit too, but I guess he didn't really say anything. But at the same time, he was kind of implying it, even if he didn't mean to. And I think that is another problem. Feng Xin was more concerned with, well, if these prayers exist, you should have heard them, rather than the implication of him saying that, which is, you're not telling us that you heard them. Like, I keep bringing up how Muqing's way of communicating is not very straightforward and contributes to a lot of these confusing moments, but Feng Xin here is doing the same thing. He doesn't mean to imply anything, because that's not in his nature, but the words he's choosing and the way he's saying things is easy to interpret as him implying things. It seemed they were ready to start quarreling again. Hualian gestured for them to pause, feeling his head throb. All right, Feng Xin didn't mean anything by it. Both of you stop this instant. The two immediately stopped arguing. Incidentally, it was just then that Qirong finally grew tired of watching his subordinates beat up on Lang Ying. He grabbed for a small pouch to dump all the melon seed shells into, as he gave an order to the guards. Drag that thieving crook to prison and lock him up. The guards acknowledged the command with a yes, sir, and several of them picked up Lang Ying. Let's deal with the problem at hand, Hualian said. We'll save this man first, and I'll ask him about Yong'an properly later. Muqing's expression relaxed, and he asked cautiously. Your Highness, how do you plan on doing that? You can't show yourself so easily. Since his ascension, that was one of the rules Hualian just couldn't understand. See, I'm grinning now because I was literally saying how this would be one of the rules that Hualian would not agree with, and I feel so validated. I feel like I put in so much work into understanding his character, and I feel like I am. That was very validating. The heavenly officials all talked about helping the common people, and yet they also put on airs, positioned themselves above mortals, and barred themselves from appearing before them at will. Hualian was restricted at every turn, which caused him endless frustration. Thankfully, he also had ways to get around this problem. Without a thought and without looking back, he reached out and pushed. The people standing before them noticed a shadow on the ground, vaguely shaking, and turned around in confusion. The next moment, Qirong yelled in horror, "Cousin Crown Prince!" Hualian had pushed his own divine statue over. Hualian, I love you. That kind, beautiful sword and flower-holding golden statue swayed back and forth and then slowly listed to the side. Qirong looked as though he'd just seen his own mother kicked out the stool while hanging upset. I gasped to the extreme. Oh my gosh, that was more extreme than I thought that sentence would be. He lost all care for Lang Ying as he rushed desperately to cling onto the leg of that statue, stubbornly trying to keep it upright and screaming heart-rendingly as he did. "What are you useless pieces of trash waiting for? Help me hold him up! Don't let Cousin Crown Prince fall! He can't fall!" While he was terrified to distraction, Hualian calmly and casually passed by him and stepped out of the hall. Fengxian and Muqing's expressions were positively dumbfounded. It took a moment before Fengxian finally cried, "Your Highness, that was your own divine statue!" A toppled statue was a bad omen. That was something I mentioned earlier as well, but doing this by himself? So doing that toppling was more or less taboo. A heavenly official who'd push over his own statue like that was unheard of, a rarity in all the 3 realms. "It's only a big hunk of gold," Hualian said. "If I didn't do that, I wouldn't have caught their attention. You two, go and hold the golden statue down. Keep them in place. I'm going to meet with that man." Fengxian and Muqing were still speechless and could do nothing but obey. They stood next to that divine statue and each used just one finger to press down on it. That small bit of power was all they needed. Well, they don't even need to be the both of them for this. They're both just using one finger. One of them could use 2 fingers. Free up some space. There's plenty to do, guys. Be a bit more efficient. But then again, I suppose we can call this bonding experiences. The ones holding it up on the other side had to use every ounce of their strength, and they could still only keep the half-toppled status quo, their teeth clenched hard. "As expected of true solid gold, such weight!" As for Lang Ying, he'd long since fallen on his bottom, and he now noticed that the guards were no longer concerned with him. He stared at the golden shine of the divine statue for a long while before he rose to his feet, dusted himself off, and hurried away carrying his satchel. Hualian followed behind, watching. Lang Ying ran for a fair distance as he entered a lush and heavy forest, then looked around before sitting down under a tree to rest. Hualian hid behind that tree, then cast a spell with a casual hand seal to transform himself into the form of a young, white-clad cultivator. After the transformation, he looked himself up and down to ensure there was nothing amiss. He was fiddling with his whisk, thinking about how to approach without appearing too abruptly when he noticed that Lang Ying was squatting next to a puddle by the tree and busying himself with digging a hole in the ground. Ellipsy reply. Is he gonna bury his stolen coins? Well, first ellipsy reply of volume 3. The young man's hands were large, and one swipe was enough to create a wide, deep gouge. Dirt flew as he dug, and he looked much like a very lean black wolf dog. Hualian was just wondering why the man had suddenly started digging when he saw Lang Ying wipe the mud off his pants, scoop a handful of water with both hands, and bring it to his lips. At the sight of this, Hualian couldn't hide anymore and rushed out, Was he digging to make like a ditch for water to gather so he could drink? He stopped the man's hands and passed him a water bottle he retrieved from his Tienkun sleeves. The secret pocket sleeves, the toddy sleeves. Lang Ying's cheeks were already round with a mouthful of puddled water, and he swallowed it down. He gazed at this little cultivator who had appeared so suddenly, but he didn't question it, nor did he reject the offer. He took the water bottle and gulped down its entire contents in one go. Only after he finished did he utter, "Thanks." This is interesting. This is going. I'm excited to see this conversation because if Lang Ying here really is, the start of the Yong'an royal family line, this is a very interesting meeting. Since he had already appeared so abruptly, Hualian stopped caring about having a natural opening line. He tried his best to swing his whisk transcendentally, like someone worthy of trust. "My friend, where did you come from and where are you going?" "We came from the Bay of Lang'e, in the city of Yong'an. I was going to head to the Imperial Palace, but I've changed my mind. I'm not going anymore." Okay. Whew. Not good, not good. Can kind of thank Qirong for that one as well, huh? He comes from the Bay of Lang'e. Hualian was taken aback. "We?" Lang Ying nodded. "We, me, and my son, oh my fucking god. Oh no, burying the suffering son. I have a dreadful feeling about where this is going. Could it be? We'll see, won't we? Hualian was growing even more confused, but his heart was sinking. Same Hualian, same. He watched as Lang Ying removed the satchel from his back and opened it. My son. Inside the satchel he'd been carrying on his back was the dead body of a small child. Holy fucking shit. Yeah, that would be an experience that would radicalize someone into eventual rebellion. The child was a tiny creature who looked no more than 2 or 3 years of age. His face was yellow, his cheeks sallow, and his head had a few sparse strands of thin, yellowing hair stuck to it. Rashes streaked across his skin. That little face was twisted into a strange expression, as if holding back tears and terribly miserable. His eyes were already closed, but his mouth was still open, though no sound would ever come from it again. Hualian's pupils shrank. His spirit shocked to the core, unable to speak. No wonder he had felt that this young man had a strange air about him. He couldn't have explained what that strangeness was, only that he was abnormal. The way he spoke, the way he behaved, it was like he didn't consider consequences at all. He was blunt and berserk and entirely reckless, but at this point, why would he need to consider consequences? After showing him his son, Lang Ying wrapped the child anew, carefully tucking the cloth around him. Seeing how focused he was in his action made Hualian miserable. It was his very first time seeing the corpse of such a young child. He asked, stammering, How did your son die?" Lang Ying adjusted the satchel on his back and replied, bemused, "How did he die? I don't know that either. Thirst, hunger, sickness, maybe a bit of everything." He scratched his head. "When I first carried him out of Yong'an, he would still cough a bit, and he called me from my back, 'Dad, Dad!' Eventually, there was no more of that, only coughing. And then there were no more coughs. I thought he'd fallen asleep. Later, when I found something to eat and tried to wake him up, he wouldn't." The child had died on the road of escape. Lang Ying shook his head. "I don't know how to take care of children. If my wife knew our son died, she'd scold me to death. After a moment of silence, he added, I really wish my wife could still scold me. Damn. He's really lost everything. His expression had stayed calm the entire time, like a branch snapped from a withered tree, or a pool of dead water without ripples or any trace of life. Hualian's throat constricted, unable to swallow. Moments later, he suggested, in a small voice, Why don't you bury him? Long Ying nodded. Yeah, I wanted to pick a nice place. Here's not bad. There are trees to block the sun and water too. I'll go back after burying him. Thanks for your water. He coughed a few times and bent down again, continuing to dig with his hands. The coughing is ominous. Is this the start of the disease, do you think? Anyway, gosh, this scene is so heavy. Oh my lord. I did not think this was where we were going so quickly. Hualian mumbled softly. No, don't thank me, don't. Just then, Function and Mooching arrived, and they were greeted with the confusing sight of one person digging a hole and another watching in a daze. Hualian wasn't in the mood to speak and just kept muttering a few incoherent words. It was some time before Hualian remembered that simply giving water wasn't enough. This man was returning to Yong'an, thus his hand went back into his sleeve, rummaging around. Finally finding what he was looking for, he passed it over. Here, take this. Long Ying stopped and looked closely at the item in Hualian's hand. It was a deep red pearl, no bigger than a fingernail. The fucking pearl, the other pearl, the one that Hua Chang did not take. He's just been keeping it around, and he's giving it to, like, this is why the pearl is back here. It's not just the one Hua Chang took, it's about the pearl that Hualian gave to Long Ying of Yong'an. Its luster smooth and sleek, polished and brilliant, and soul-stirringly beautiful. Even if he didn't know what it was, a simple glance made it obvious this little thing was invaluable. This was in fact the remaining red coral pearl earring that Hualian had worn during the Shengyuan heavenly ceremonial procession 3 years before. That pearl had left a deep impression on Mooching. Yeah, because he couldn't find the other one. So the moment he saw it, his face changed. Long Ying didn't reject it. He took it directly, as if the proper manners and concerns of a normal person had long since left him. Thanks. He carefully tucked the pearl into his belt. Then he removed the satchel on his back and gently laid it into the pit he dug. Dad will come back very soon to visit you. Yeah, no. Parents burying their children. Yeah, that's hard. That's very hard. Finished, he solemnly pushed the earth back to cover the satchel. Hualian put his hand on his forehead and closed his eyes. A moment later, the young man strode away. Fengshen was bewildered. Your Highness, what did he bury here? He said Dad. He buried someone? Mooching was concerned with something else. Your Highness, I looked into what happened. Yong'an has never been a wealthy place. Their temples and shrines are few in number. It seems they also have a local rule where those who don't offer donations can't pray. So those who visited the temple of the Crown Prince have all been wealthy. The suffering poor can't eat. Well, that explains everything. This is, again, referring to something I did mention earlier. It's a classism problem. Only the wealthy get to pray to the Crown Prince. So the people in Yong'an who are least affected by the drought just now are the ones who get to pray for things. And the people who are dying don't get to voice their pleas. Hualian didn't respond to the report. He said in a dark voice, "You two, go to Yong'an and see what the situation is. I will go meet the state preceptor and ask him exactly what's going on." He had never looked this upset before. His two subordinates didn't dare to be negligent. They acknowledged his command and departed an instant later. Hualian himself turned and raced in the direction of Mount Taizang. It appeared that the situation in Yong'an could only be a major disaster, not a small disturbance. Even if he himself couldn't hear the voices of prayers, it hardly meant those at the imperial palace were so uninformed. And that was the end of chapter 29, which was another quite short chapter of 10 pages. Oh my fucking god. I need some water. Okay. So what can we say about this chapter? The moment we learn that this man was from Yong'an, we know that a rebellion is gonna start in Yong'an. We already know that that's coming. And while I am in slight shock at how close and explicit this encounter is, the fact that we're meeting, like, our first idea of this catastrophe really that's happening, a natural catastrophe, the drought that's happening in Yong'an. Our first time learning about this is through one of the victims who has suffered the harshest of the consequences, bearing his own life. To Hualian, this is also the first time he has ever had to encounter this. He has never seen the corpse of a young child. He's never seen this kind of suffering before. And he's never been this distraught over someone else's suffering. I adore the contrast. I absolutely adore the contrast between the first part of the first chapter of this book and where we're headed now. And I really, really enjoy that this is how we're getting to experience it. Like, we could have learned about the drought and, like, actually gone to Yong'an before we're getting, any eyewitness accounts and any, getting to hear from the source. But instead, this is how we're introduced to it. This is how it's going. And that's honestly, that's so clever. That's such masterful, setup. Like, we're here kind of like, okay, so we're 3 years later, Hualian's on top of the world right now. This is the most popular he's ever been. Temple popping up right and left. And we're kind of focused in on Qirong, is he gonna do some shit now that he's, here opening up this temple, or is he has he improved somewhat? And our focus is really on just other things entirely. And then this random character pops up, acts a bit like silly, stupid person sort of vibe, Like the comments from the other characters, like a proper country bumpkin, this boorish man who just has no manners. And then we learn about the drought. And then Hualian meets him in the forest. And all of those mannerisms are immediately turned around because we see it in a different light. This is not a man who's just a silly old farmer who's just come up into the city and doesn't know what's going on, who's just looking for the imperial palace. This is a man who's already mad with grief. He's lost his wife, and on his way here, his son also died. His very, very young son. This going from Yong'an to the capital of Xianle to beg for help is an act of desperation on his behalf. And the first thing that meets him is this wonderfully gilded, not even just gilded, this fucking temple has a statue of pure gold. Water running, money overflowing. And then these people who just have no idea what is going on in Yong'an, that have no idea about this disaster, and who have no inclination of helping him or even pointing him in the correct direction of the fucking royal palace. At the end of it, after learning, Qirong is a prince and that he's just us royals, the king doesn't have time for you. He gives up. At the end of that conversation, he's given up. He hasn't even tried going to the imperial palace yet, but he is. So yes, those two chapters, the setup is masterful already. I love that this is how we're being introduced to this problem. And because we already know where this is ending up, we're paying special attention to him the moment that we learn his name, which, by the way, and knowing that he's from Yong'an. I don't think that's the last we're going to see of him, and I think that these experiences, this immense grief, paired with the fact that the people who can help won't help, even though they have the means to, that's grounds for radicalization. That's like, you've got that happening so fast. It would not surprise me at all if this guy is gonna start the dismay that eventually leads to, you know, the Yong'an rebellion. And by the way, because his name is Lang Ying, and he's obviously not from a sort of noble, you know, family, like a big noble family that has like generations of this name or whatever. I think he's gonna be the start of the Yong'an royal family. He's gonna establish the Yong'an royal family. Like, I might have to just get a picture from the book of him. I guess I can use the art that was of him in the book next to Qirong. He's at Long-Er Bay, right? Bay of Long-Er. Getting his name up there so fast, holy shit. Okay, I have calmed down a little, I'm not about to cry again, and honestly, that was again a very short chapter. We've only read like 24 pages. I am sure we can go on a little bit further, and it looks to me like these chapters are rather short. This one might be a little bit longer. So with the setting now a little bit clearer to us, let us continue into chapter 30. God of Heaven observes mortal matters. Mount Taizang, the Crown Prince Summit. It was the time of the day when the crowds of visitors could no longer linger and were asked to lead the royal holy temple. The sounds of chanting sutras echoed in waves from within the palace of Xianle, and over 1,000 cultivators were conducting their evening lessons with the 4 state preceptors leading the service beneath the feet of the 15-meter-high golden divine statue. Within the temple of the Crown Prince, innumerable offering lamps lined the walls on both sides from floor to ceiling. Hualian descended from the sky, landed lightly on the altar, and took a seat right before his own statue. He waved, and a light breeze blew from out of nowhere, making the countless lamps spin gently, their lights blurring. The cultivators looked up and began to whisper in awe among themselves. The state preceptor, who was sitting slumped with his eyes closed, suddenly blinked them open. "That'll be it for today. You're all dismissed." The cultivators rose to their feet and left. The other 3 deputy state preceptors couldn't see Hualian's true form, but they could guess that some being had descended, and they also departed the hall and closed the temple doors behind them. Once those tall doors were shut, Hualian immediately began to speak, unable to wait another second. "State Preceptor, did you know about the drought in Yong'an? There's been no word from father, so did something happen at court? Or is he simply unaware of the exact situation?" Heavenly officials were not permitted to show themselves before mortals without explicit permission from on high. But there was only one exception to the rule, and that was appearing before high-level cultivators such as state preceptors or religious ministers. Those who had cultivated to certain levels were representatives of heavenly officials in the mortal realm, and this was why Hualian could speak directly to the state preceptor. Oh, okay, so the state preceptor can speak directly to Hualian. Hualian is allowed to speak to him. So before, because now, yeah, Hualian is the big god, but we were, in a palace of divine might earlier. So would Zhenwu also speak to this state preceptor then? The no prostrating within the Temple of the Crown Prince rule was thus dictated through the mouth of the state preceptor from Hualian. He had originally thought there was some sort of extreme circumstance, an exceptional issue the king couldn't extricate himself from to handle the disaster in Yong'an, something that had tied his hands or something that had prevented him from realizing that things were so deadly serious. Unexpectedly, however, the state preceptor replied, His Majesty the King is in satisfactory health. Nothing major has happened, and he knows very well of what is happening in Yong'an. Hualian was taken aback. So am I. What the fuck? Then how come in all the times Father visited the Royal Holy Temple, I've never heard him pray of Yong'an once, not even a word? Even if he didn't get along well with his father, he also knew that the king was not a fatuous ruler. While the man revered hierarchy, saw himself as the son of the heavens above the common folk, that didn't mean he was indifferent to the plight of refugees, the state preceptor replied. This has nothing to do with His Majesty. I am the one who advised that neither he nor the king mention Yong'an in their prayers. Why? Hualian demanded. And so do I. Because it's pointless, the state preceptor stated. Hualian was shocked. What do you mean pointless? He paused for a moment and worked over the state preceptor's words in his mind. Are you saying that because I'm a martial god with no control over droughts, telling me would be pointless? I may be a martial god, but I'm also the crown prince of Xianle, or did you forget? My people are mired in misery. How can I sit back and do nothing? After a thought, he continued. The priority right now is to save and settle the disaster victims. Please speak to my father on my behalf and tell him to stop constructing these temples. There are already too many temples of the crown prince in this kingdom. I don't need all of them. And those golden statues, they could be melted down to help allocate funds for the disaster. Yong'an is to the west, and they need water. So let's dig a river and divert water from the east to irrigate the crops and nourish the land. As he spoke, the state preceptor only shook his head, muttering to himself, Too early, too early. Yeah, that's what he said. That's what he said. Hualian didn't understand. What's too early? Do you understand now why I said you shouldn't ascend too early? The state preceptor asked. It's because your people haven't died out yet. A ellipsy reply from Hualian and also from me. These ellipsy replies are now way less funny. They're coming on at really serious moments, honestly. Hualian's eyes widened and his voice grew dark and furious. State preceptor, what are you saying? What do you mean my people haven't died out yet? You've already become a god, but you can't forget who you were as a mortal. You're unable to let go and differentiate between the two realms, the state preceptor replied. You're involving yourself, but you're also powerless, and the results will be an utter mess. But that was, that's kind of the, again, the position that the state preceptor had earlier, and completely opposite of the decision and perspective that Hualian has, which is that gods should be more involved. But then again, it seems like all of heaven has this perspective that he shouldn't be. Hualian was seated upon the altar, and the state preceptor stood below. Even though it was obvious Hualian was the one looking down, when the state preceptor spoke, it was as if he were the one above. Yeah, I think that's an indication of Hualian feeling like still like a student, you know, like he's talking to his teacher. How can I be powerless? As long as I act, there will be results. Every little bit counts. Even if I can only save one person, that's still better than indifference and inaction. If you will not speak to my father on my behalf, then I will seek him out myself, Hualian said. Probably not a good idea, huh? He shot to his feet, but the state preceptor seized a corner of his sleeve, yelling, oh, he can actually touch him? Come back! Do you know why heavenly officials aren't allowed to show themselves before mortals at will? A law that's existed for thousands of years exists for a reason. Don't do anything foolish. Hualian whipped his head back. Then what can I do? I can't do this, I can't do that. State preceptor, there are people dying right now in my land. Are gods not called gods because they can save people? If I don't appear now, then when can I appear? What will my ascension even mean? The state preceptor held him down, sighing. Your Highness, Your Highness, do you know what I've seen? Hualian calmed himself before sitting again. Please enlighten me. The state preceptor stared back at him. I've seen your future, and it's pitch black. Oh, is that after the Is it because his fate has changed? His future has changed? Oops. So that means that it's happened already, right? Because if this had been the case earlier, he would have mentioned it earlier, right? The state preceptor stared hard at him. I've seen your future, and it's pitch black. Hualian looked him straight in the eye. You must be mistaken. I only like to wear white. What the... I've seen this quote before. Are you for real? This is... I've seen this quote on fan art from fucking omniscient readers' viewpoints. I swear, I've seen this on fan art. I didn't know it was a TGCF quote. I've seen your future and it's pitch black. Hualian looked him straight in the eyes. You must be mistaken. I only like to wear white. That is... I wasn't even able to appreciate how fucking badass that quote was because I was just so shocked seeing it here. I've seen this before. I've seen TGCF out of context. That's hilarious to me. That's so funny. Oh my gosh, I need to bookmark this one. That's so fucking badass. I love that. The State Preceptor replies, I worry that not only will you be unable to save your people, they will turn around and drag you down from the divine Alta, the State Preceptor said. My people are not like that. They can clearly recognize what is right and what is wrong. If I cannot save them, then there's no meaning to me being on this altar anyway, Hualian replied. Uh-oh. Yeah, they certainly will drag him down from it. As for recognize what is right and what is wrong, Hualian doesn't know what crowd mentality is just yet. It was a good while before the State Preceptor sighed again. What your father has done can't be called right, but it can't be called wrong either. You said to allocate funds, but it's not like your father hasn't tried. You can go see how effective that's been. And you said to dig a river to divert the waters. Go to that river yourself and determine whether it can be done. Hualian bowed his head. I understand. Thank you, State Preceptor. Upon leaving Mount Taitsang, he headed westward and arrived at the city of Yong'an within the kingdom of Xianle. In the 20 years of his life, Hualian had never imagined the sun could be so scorching and deadly. With every step, he could feel how unbearably hot and dry the earth was. It was like the air around him was contorted with it. In the blazing sunlight, the land had cracked into broken chunks that looked horrifyingly aged. There was a deep gutter by the roadside that seemed to have been a river once, but now it was dry to the bottom, and the blackened riverbed emitted a strange stench. He walked for a long time and didn't see a single paddy field. Maybe there had been a field once, but at this point they were unrecognizable. Hualian looked around as he walked. That hot, dry breeze blew his long hair into a mess, but he was too preoccupied to care. Just then, someone suddenly called for him from behind. Your Highness! Hualian turned his head and saw two figures in black approaching in a rush. It was Function and Mooching. Hualian cut straight to the point. Any news? Function flapped the front of his shirt to fan himself. Yes, over the past 2 years, the whole Western Territory has been going through a water shortage, and things finally blew up this year. Yong'an is the worst affected. The river's dry and the rain doesn't fall, so the crops won't grow. The wealthier families are still faring all right. As long as there's money, food and water can be brought from elsewhere. However, most of the wealthy have already moved to the Eastern Territories. Those who are left are either poor or unable to survive the move. Hualian knitted his brows. The State Preceptor said my father didn't just sit back, that he gave the order to send disaster relief, so why is it still so serious? When funds go through government checkpoints, each checkpoint skims off a little bit to line their own pockets, until finally there's nothing left. Of course it's still this serious, Mooching said coldly. And he's right, isn't he? If it were up to me, I would have preferred not to send anything at all, rather than feed those parasites. Hualian's breath hitched. Forcing his anger down, he stated, I will tell those parasites to regurgitate. Fuck, I don't know how to pronounce this word. Regurgitate. I will tell those parasites to regurgitate every single penny they've devoured. Your Highness, did you forget? Mooching reminded him. This is not within your purview. Heavenly officials can't interfere in mortal matters. A meter of ice isn't formed by a single cold day. His Majesty the King is the one responsible for the mortal realm. This is his duty. If even he can't manage it, how will you fix it when you've already got your hands full of countless prayers from your devotees? If you concern yourself with this and that, in the end, you'll only bring problems upon yourself. Besides, that would only cure the symptoms, not the root cause. Feng Xin blocked out the sun with his hand. To cure the root cause, there needs to be water. For now, why don't your Majesty have the State Preceptor tell His Majesty to divert waters from the east to the west? Hualian shook his head. I already suggested that to the State Preceptor. What did he say? Feng Xin asked. Another ellipsis reply from Hualian, who was momentarily stumped. And again, all the ellipsis replies are suddenly super, serious. That used to be the fun tally. Now it's the serious tally. Hualian was momentarily stumped. That's not feasible, more or less. But I realize now that it really can't be done. To redirect the water, we'd need to dig the river, but something like digging a canal would require mass conscription. But who knows how many years that would take. And it'd only exhaust the people and the treasury. It won't work. Feng Xin nodded. True enough. Distant waters can't extinguish nearby fires. Hualian hummed. But if this can't be solved by mortal means, maybe we can try divine methods. I heard there has been a change of Rainmasters in recent years. Rainmaster? The newly ascended Rainmaster seems like a reclusive person, but I'll see if I can pay a visit and request that eastern waters be moved westward as rain. Since Hualian's ascension, he never paid any personal visits to any other heavenly officials aside from greeting John Woo, and never tried to purposely befriend anyone, treating all equally within the spiritual communication array. His taking the initiative to pay visits was thus a rare occasion. Rainmaster, huh? That's actually super exciting, because that means... I am finally moving Rainmaster out of the banishment corner. We have a proper mention of them. That's super exciting. And another thing, newly ascended, there has been a recent change of Rainmasters in these past few years. So either, around the time Hualian ascended, there was a new ascendee Rainmaster. So this Rainmaster is from Hualian's generation. I wonder if this Rainmaster is the same Rainmaster as the current Rainmaster, or if there has been more changes. But we have Rainmaster, newly ascended, and Hualian wants to visit them. Mu Qing, however, objected. No. Hualian turned to regard him. Why not? Your Highness, I've investigated thoroughly. The truth is, in these past 2 years, it's not just Yong'an or the Western Territory that's been experiencing a shortage of water, but the entire kingdom of Xianle. The Eastern Territory is close to the sea and is surrounded by lakes and ravines, so it's not as obvious and hasn't become an issue yet. But overall, the amount of water and rain has significantly decreased from previous levels. Hualian's eyes widened as Mu Qing continued. If we really dug a canal or used rain to move water from the east to the west, it might temporarily relieve Yong'an, but it wouldn't save it completely. It would only help them hang on by a thread. Meanwhile, it could very well doom the Eastern Territory. Hualian's heart ceased. And most of the population of Xianle, along with its most prosperous places, are in the east. It's more than 3 times the size of the west and contains the imperial capital. If a drought were to happen there, Feng Xin immediately understood as well. The consequences would be significantly more serious than in Yong'an, and the number of deaths greater. Mu Qing nodded, his expression solemn. It would give birth to a much larger disaster. Hualian took a deep breath. So, is that what the State Preceptor meant when he said what Father did wasn't right but wasn't wrong either? That he made this choice? Which is why, Your Highness, that no one praying for help at your temples was a good thing, Mu Qing said. Leave it to His Majesty to decide what to do. Hualian didn't respond. He looked back. He's not gonna leave it to His Majesty, huh? The entire time they walked, every person he saw was nothing but skin and bones. Men and children had their upper bodies bare, rows of ribs visible and clear on their torsos, and the women had dead eyes and faces empty of life. No one moved much. They didn't have the energy. The foul stench of death hung over everything. It made one want to scream, to escape this decaying earth and return to the glory of the flourishing imperial capital. It was a long time before he finally spoke. You two stay here and assist me. Deliver as much water as you can. Let me think about this. Fine. Go and think it over carefully, Fengxian said. Just let me know what to do once you've decided. Hualian patted his shoulder and then turned to leave. Behind him, Mu Qing said quietly, Your Highness, do think this through carefully. We can help for 10 days, maybe 20, but not a year or 2. We can save 100 lives, but not 100,000. You're a martial god, after all, not a god of water. And even if you were the god of water, you couldn't create water from nothing. If we can't fix the root of this problem, we won't be able to keep it going. Our plans are inadequate, like using a cup of water to douse a burning cart of firewood. And that was the end of chapter 30. Again, another short chapter, but yeah. So this chapter is sort of letting us in on the situation. We first learned about the drought just now from Lang Ying. However, other people have been in the know. The king is in the know, the state preceptor is in the know, and the reason why we haven't heard anything or Hualian hasn't heard anything is because they have not mentioned it to him. And since he hasn't been receiving prayers about it, yeah, there was just no way. And again, a problem that keeps popping up is the classism issue. Hualian's father has sent relief aid to these people in Yong'an, and nothing reaches them because at every checkpoint, someone is taking their share. The most prosperous people in Yong'an have already moved eastwards. This has been going on for a couple of years already. And I imagine after the first year, you'd have people start moving when there's no improvement, you know. And the people who are left behind are the ones too poor to be able to make the move. Not that people won't move if need be, but most of these people who are too poor have never had to go to these extremes, and for various other reasons might be unable to, even if it is to save themselves. I mean, as we see with Lang Ying, he could make the trip. His son didn't. If you have a whole family who are already, you know, starving, low on energy, low on food, how many would die on the way over? So a natural disaster is part of what sparks the rebellion. But even at this point, I don't think Hualian is going to not do anything. I feel like he would want to give aid, no matter how. Like, he is convinced that even if he just saves one person, it's gonna be worth it. And yeah, one life, even for a high price, most people would agree that yes, a life is worth it. But sadly, I think that this thing I've been talking about, how Hualian and his godhood is so tightly linked to the current ruler, and also the way, again, like Hualian too is aware, like he doesn't need all these temples, there are already way too many. And as we see with the character Lang Ying here, the opulence of these temples are part of what's gonna brew that resentment. So even if Hualian here is probably going to be trying his best going forward, and might even succeed in saving one life, a few lives, the fact that his reputation is so closely linked with what is currently being done, or perceived as being done, by the ruler of Xianle, that's going to be a devastating blow. And this is before, like, we haven't even gotten to the disease yet. Like, I keep forgetting, but like this guy's here because of the fucking disease that devastated Xianle. We haven't even gotten to that part. I'm really wondering if the coughing that both Lang Ying and his son is kind of referred to as doing has something to do with the face disease. But then again, I think I remember that even Hualian was like, no, the disease was not in Yong'an. So the disease originated elsewhere. And again, if my theory of this guy eventually becoming by Wuxiang is true, yeah, that he would have made the disease start in Xianle, not in Yong'an. So I'm thinking maybe there's going to be like multiple things happening at the same time here. You've got the oncoming uprising of Yong'an, probably because of, you know, this suppression, all these poor people who are unable to get help because there are all these better off people who are taking advantage of the relief aid being sent and who are living, you know, in these opulent, splendid places with no care or mind for the fact that they're dying. So we have a lot of things that can still happen here. We have only read like less than 40 pages. The next chapter is less than 20 pages. You know what? I think I'm gonna power through and get another chapter in. This is gonna be a good chunk to begin volume 3 with. I'm gonna be happy if I can do another chapter. So you guys, you know what? Let's do it. Let's go for chapter 31. To meet you in the mortal realm, to find flowers beneath the rain. Oh my gosh. Is that it? Please be a Huachong reference. Please bring Hong Honger back into my life. I need him. It's probably going to be that scene. It's going to be that scene that's in the short film, probably, likely, right? The rain, flowers, meet you in the mortal realm. That's got to be it. I'm so ready for this, but also, oh no, I cried so hard last time. This is not going to be good. I need like a liter of water before I start this. Okay. Let me sit back. I am really not ready for this, but hey, here we go. Hualian briefly paused in his step at Mu Qing's words, but in the end he didn't turn back. He waved, then continued on. By the way, I forgot to mention, but I love that Mu Qing and Fengshen are taking this very seriously. They are really doing their jobs really well. Mu Qing is like above and beyond. He's gathering all this information. I love them working together. When he returned to the capital of Xianle, Hualian headed straight for the imperial palace. He didn't know why he was going there, since it wasn't exactly to see his parents, and that wasn't because he was a heavenly official and forbidden to show himself before mortals. After he first left home, and in all the years that had passed, he didn't really know how to start conversations with his parents anymore. A common sentiment for every child in the world. Thus, he concealed himself and ran haphazardly about the palace he was so familiar with, but His Majesty the King was nowhere to be found. It was only when he went to Chifeng Palace that he came across his father and mother. If I remember correctly, Chifeng Palace was the Queen's palace. The two had just dismissed the palace attendants and were chatting between themselves. The Queen sat on the side of the bed. The mask that she was fiddling with was the very one that Hualian had worn 3 years ago at a heavenly ceremonial procession. The shape of the golden mask had been carefully molded to Hualian's features, which was why it had fit him so perfectly and comfortably when he had worn it. When others saw the mask, the degree of similarity between his real face was almost frightening. Okay, so holding the mask maybe as a symbol of, yeah, it's been 3 years. So like a callback to the fact that, yeah, that ceremony, the 3 rounds around the capital, the 3 years of prosperity. But also, you know, a mother missing her son. We're doing multiple things with one symbol. And I kind of like that. That's so clever. Stop playing around with that and come massage my temples, the king chided. Even though the king and queen kept up an act of perfection in front of the people, Hualian had seen clearly from a young age that behind the scenes, his parents bickered and nagged each other like any other normal married couple. The queen put down the mask as expected and moved to the king's side to help rub his temples. She combed through his hair and suddenly remarked, "You got more white in your hair again." Hualian took a closer look. True to his mother's words, his father's hair was greying on the sides, and it aged him a few years. Didn't father visit the Royal Holy Temple to pray just a little while ago? He wondered. His hair was still black then. How did it go grey so suddenly? The queen handed the king a copper mirror, but he pushed it away. No need to see, just dye it black again before we next visit Mount Titan. It was then that Hualian realized. His hair didn't go grey recently. It greyed a long time ago. It's just that he's been dyeing it black every time he comes to see me. I've been too occupied listening to the prayers of my devotees and running around. I rarely made time to come back and visit. That's why I didn't suspect anything. This conclusion filled Hualian with guilt. For once, he was glad his parents couldn't see him. As the queen massaged the king's head, she scolded. I told you to rest early every evening, yet you never listened to me. And you even accused me of nagging you day and night. Now look at how unsightly you've become. If our son saw, he definitely wouldn't want anything to do with you. The king huffed. Ever since your son grew up and spread his wings, he stopped caring about me anyway. Despite his words, he still couldn't help but take a peek at the copper mirror by the bedside, and he grumbled. I don't look so bad. Isn't it still the same face? Hualian was stunned in spite of himself. He'd never seen this side of his father before, complaining about him behind his back with such petulance. He couldn't help but smile. The queen obviously felt the same, and she held back her laughter. Okay, it's not that awful. Your health is more important than the heavens, so rest early today. The king shook his head. I cannot. A number of people from Yong'an have settled in the capital lately. If they want to come, that's fine, but they just have to make a nuisance of themselves and make the people uneasy. It's a tricky situation. Oh yeah, integration policy is not going very well. As it turned out, his father's hair was going grey because of the drought in Yong'an. An indescribable misery seized Hualian. The queen nodded. Rong-Er told me he met someone from Yong'an today as well. Apparently the man tried to steal money from the temple. How frightening. Oh my god. Yeah, because these desperate actions that we witnessed and we know the cause of, and we, like, as readers, are probably, empathizing with at this point. I mean, I am. I don't know about you guys. Are being presented to others like this. Like, this was frightening that these people from Yong'an are coming to our cities and plundering our temples. Yeah, this is not good. These are creating rumors and stereotypes that appear true, but will only make the integration efforts even harder to accomplish. The king was sullen. Indeed, it's shocking. If there were only 10 or hundreds of them, that would be fine. But if all 100,000 of them came here to scurry about the capital, the impact would be unimaginable. The queen debated for a moment before she said, That might not happen. If they follow the law and keep to themselves, then let them come. As the king of a nation, how can I take a risk on something that might not happen? He replied. They absolutely cannot come. Looking after a few more people is not as simple as placing a few more sets of chopsticks down at the table. There are many complications involved that you don't understand. This conversation is over. Okay, let's not talk about this anymore, the queen soothed. I didn't understand the things you spoke of to begin with. If only our son were still here, then he could at least help take some of the burden off of you, the king humphed. Him? What could he do? As long as he doesn't cause me any more worries, that's good enough. At the mention of Hualian, the king seemed to liven up again. That son of yours, he's already in his teens, but he was raised like a princess. Even if he learned about everything that's happening, it won't do any good. It would just add to his worries for no reason. Let him keep flying in the sky. It's best if he doesn't know anything. He should do his own thing. He's not the crown prince anymore, so there's no need for him to care about matters in the mortal realm. He loves to fly, so let him fly to his heart's content. Hualian listened silently as his father grew increasingly excited in recounting his faults. With a knowing smile on her face, the queen nudged the king. Now you call him princess. Aren't you the one who spoiled our princess since he was young? And now you want to blame it all on me? She sighed. That child is good at everything except missing home. He was already like this when he was studying at the Royal Holy Temple. He'd only visit once every few months. It's worse now that he's ascended. We haven't seen him once in 3 years. Who knows if we'll ever see him again? Her complaint had the king turn around and start defending Hualian. What would a woman know? The state preceptor said those were the laws of heaven. How can we still treat him like a common mortal? If you call your son back, you'll be weighing him down. I'm only saying, the queen quickly explained herself. I won't make any demands in front of him. Then she muttered. It's not so bad when I can look at his statues. They resemble him closely enough. And they're everywhere. Oh, that's... yeah. That's another thing I did mention about the statues. Yes, there's this complication of the king of Xianle building all these statues, spending all these funds on basically, building up his god's son. His son, who is a god. But at the same time, there is an underlying sense of grief in parents who have lost their son. Not that he's dead, but he's not there. And I think this conversation shows the other side of that. Like we've already talked, Hualian has taken that first perspective and made it into a case in front of the state preceptor. I don't need all these temples. We could use the funds for helping. But from his parents' point of view, this is their own way of grieving, in a sense. To Hualian's mother, just the fact that she sees his face everywhere because of these statues is a relief to her, and it's helping her deal with her grief. And yes, we already know that Hualian and his father did not see eye to eye, but from this conversation, like the vibe I'm getting is that his father just wants him to prosper where he is, especially seeing this situation here. He doesn't want Hualian to be bothered with it. He doesn't want him to have to spend effort on it because he knows Hualian well enough to know that he would want to. He loves to fly, so let him fly to his heart's content. He wants Hualian to continue being able to live as a god with as much good as that brings him. This is kind of a hard conversation to have, to listen in on. The fact that Hualian gets to listen in on this is, wow. Yeah. As he watched them for such a long time, an ache grew in Hualian's heart. It felt like there was a hard lump lodged in his throat, making it painful to swallow. He couldn't bear to stay hidden any longer, yet he couldn't reveal himself. It wasn't because he was afraid of breaking heaven's laws, but rather because even now, he still didn't know what to say. He didn't have any solutions for the situation in Yong'an. If he were to suddenly appear, it would only cause his parents more agitation and stress. He quickly retreated from the imperial palace. The moment he was outside, Hualian drew in several deep breaths, and it was only then that he was finally able to calm down. He steadied himself and pulled himself together. Then, deciding that action was better than standing around sighing, he cast a spell and transformed himself into a plainly dressed young cultivator. He ran around the capital, digging for information and recording his findings. After a full day of work and traveling all over, he finally got the answers he wanted. Indeed, the water level of every lake and river within the Xianle capital was lower than in previous years. Back when he was still at the Royal Holy Temple, there were a few times when he snuck down the mountain to play. As he had rowed his boat happily along the largest river that crossed through the kingdom of Xianle, the water level was just a bit short of the levee, but now it was several meters below. And the residents of the city said it had been like that for a while. This wasn't something that had happened overnight. Before this, Hualian hadn't paid much attention, but now that he knew to look, he was shocked to see all the warning signs so clearly. Yeah, so I feel like the drought now is kind of the manifestation of that riddle metaphor thing. The cup of water and the two thirsty people. In a case where there really is only a finite amount of water. And if you take from this area with all the people, most of the people of Xianle and move it to the other area where people are, thirsting and starving, you might end up making an even bigger disaster. He had originally hoped there'd be some mistake in Mooching's report and thus decided to come and see for himself, but now he couldn't deny that Mooching had never let him down before. Once the situation was confirmed, Hualian stood there in a trance by the riverside, deep in contemplation. Pedestrians passed behind him from time to time. Some nodded and smiled, others looked on curiously, but most went about happily minding their own business. He'd lost track of how long he'd been standing there when quietly clouds gathered from the edge of the skies and a pitter-patter sounded from all around. It had started to rain. Numerous pedestrians on the street looked up to the sky. What bad luck! It's raining, let's hurry back. Yeah, how annoying. Oh, the irony. This is so bitter. Plip plop, plip plop. Raindrops beat down on Hualian's face and clothes, and he finally came to his senses. It's raining? He muttered to himself. When the people in the capital saw rain, they dropped everything to find shelter. Heaven knows how many on the other side of Xianle would die for a rainstorm like this. A group of people with umbrellas ran past, and when they saw Hualian standing there, alone, getting soaked by the rain, they beckoned him along. Young cultivator, why aren't you getting out of the rain? It's really coming down. In his haze of confusion, Hualian somehow started running along too, and found himself seeking shelter under a long roof. Soon after, the group tucked away their umbrellas and broke out in laughter. Thank goodness I brought an umbrella with me when I saw it was cloudy, or else I would have been a drowned rat. It hasn't rained for a long time, right? The storm is way overdue, so it's going to be a big one. Oh my goodness, look, it really is pouring harder. It's going to turn into a deluge at this rate. The raindrops beat down on the ground, shattering and splattering outward. These people spoke in such a familiar, endearing accent, and Hualian felt in his heart that this was his home. This was the place where he was born and grew up, and these were the citizens he knew. As the chit-chat continued, the rain gradually lightened. A few urged, "We should hurry and go while it's eased up." The men opened their umbrellas and stepped out from under the roof one after another. Hualian still stood where he was, however. A couple of them glanced back, and after a brief discussion among themselves, one came over and handed him a worn umbrella. "Young cultivator, can't you go back?" he asked politely. "It's still pouring, so why don't you take this umbrella?" Hualian snapped out of his daydream. "Thank you very much, but what about you?" A few people from the group in the rain called out. "We've got more umbrellas that we can all squeeze under. Let's go, let's go!" Urged by his companions, the man stuffed the umbrella in Hualian's hand and ran back. The pattering sounds of their footsteps slowly faded in the distance as Hualian stood there for a while longer, holding on to the umbrella. Suddenly, he caught a glimpse of an inconspicuous shrine not too far away. Oh, is this the scene? Is this the scene we saw in one of the flashbacks with the little shrine and the umbrella that he leaves for Huacheng, who's also there? Anyway, suddenly caught a glimpse of an inconspicuous shrine not too far away. He opened his umbrella and walked toward it in the rain. Upon a closer look, the two sides of the small shrine doors were written with the verses, "Body in the abyss, heart in paradise," which is from the prologue. As it turned out, this was a shrine of the Crown Prince. Since 8,000 temples had been raised in only 3 years, it was natural that not every one of them was as extravagant and awe-inspiring as the one on Mount Taizang. Among them, there were quite a few that were built by people's grassroots efforts to help achieve that lofty number and join in on the excitement. Not only were there no donation boxes here, there were also no temple attendants. The only things that this shrine had were a clay statue and a couple of offering plates filled with assorted fruit and refreshments. His more conscientious believers would come by once in a while to freshen the place up a little. And that alone sufficed for a shrine. I kind of like the idea of Hualian, visiting this little, grassroots shrine, tiny thing. Knowing that, in the future, he has his little Pucci shrine. This is a nice little, maybe a little parallel to that, or a little, is it foreshadowing? If we're backshadowing, we're foreshadowing the future, but the future foreshadowed this. What would we even call it if the future is foreshadowing the past? Anyway, I like this, is what I'm trying to say. To think you'd find a shrine of the Crown Prince in such a well-hidden, inconspicuous nook. Without stepping in, Hualian could already make out what could be described as a charmingly tacky Crown Prince statue wearing gaudy clothing and with a broad, silly smile on its big, round, powdery white face. The statue was practically a big doll. If his mind weren't so weighed by his own thoughts, Hualian definitely would have laughed out loud. In the past 3 years, Hualian had seen at least 3,000, if not 5,000, Crown Prince statues. However, not a single one of them looked exactly like him. Even the ones closest to the mark were only about 2/3 of the way there. As for the rest, they were either all too ugly or too beautiful. Most of the divine statues of other heavenly officials were too ugly, yet Hualian had the exact opposite problem. There were some that were beautiful beyond recognition, to the point that it embarrassed him. Seriously, Hualian? Too beautiful? Of you? He didn't really take a close look at that clay statue at first, his eyes merely sweeping across the area, but a snow-white blur unexpectedly caught his eye and grabbed his attention. Grasped in the left hand of that crude clay clown, his prince statue was a flower that was white as snow. I'm so excited! Crystal dew clung to the delicate, pure white petals. A wisp of its fresh fragrance wafted in the air, the scent lovely and endearing. The signature pose of Crown Prince statues was sword in one hand, flower in the other. But a flower held in the left hand would, of course, be a finely crafted flower of gold, gems, or jade. This was the first time Hualian had seen a real flower clasped in the statue's hand, and he couldn't help but lean in for a better look. After examining it, he realized that this Crown Prince statue had probably held a clay flower once upon a time. Whether it fell due to the sculptor's poor skills or if someone had intentionally plucked it as a prank, only a small hole remained in the left fist. And that little white flower had been placed in this hole. If there was a believer who had picked a flower especially to fill the vacancy, they were a most conscientious believer indeed. I love this so much. Hualian's thoughts came to a halt when he heard hurried footsteps. He didn't look back immediately. Instead, he hid his physical form and lightly leapt onto the altar with umbrella in hand. Then turned around to look down. A young boy, no older than 12 or 13, barged in from the grey, foggy rain outside. He was soaked from head to toe, dressed in filthy old clothes, and his face was covered in equally filthy bandages. His right fist was clutched tightly over his left, like he was protecting something important, and he only opened his hands when he entered the shrine. A single tiny flower, as white as snow, bloomed quietly in his palms. Hualian hummed softly, as if he had just remembered something. A face wrapped in layers of bandages inevitably reminded him of the child he had met 3 years ago, though he couldn't be sure of this boy's identity. Pessimistically, could that child really still be alive 3 years after fleeing Mount Taitsang? Just then, the boy came forward. He lifted himself up on tiptoe and swapped the flower on the clay statue with the one in his hands. Why am I so weak for this? Why do I love this so much? The symbolism of it is just the fact that, yes, a flower in one hand, sword in the other. Every other statue Hualian has seen has a flower carved of something. And then here we have someone taking care to replace this flower every single day. Is what I'm imagining, right? That's what you're imagining too, right? I love this so much. From atop the altar, Hualian could see it as clear as day. The petals of this new flower were fuller and even more delicate, the flower more radiant. From the strong fragrance, it was clear that this flower was freshly picked. Could this boy be visiting this lonely shrine every day to provide a fresh flower for this clay statue? Yes, indeed. Moreover, after offering the flower, the boy stood in front of the clay crown prince statue. Unlike everyone else who stubbornly insisted on kneeling, he pressed his hands together and silently prayed while standing. He actually followed Hualian's wishes. It had been 3 years. Among all of Hualian's followers who had prayed, he could count government officials, nobles, names that were known across the land, and talents who would impress the heavens. And yet, Hualian felt the sincerest of them all was this child who looked barely over 13 and who had probably been barred entry to those fancier golden temples simply because of his humble clothing and had no choice but to pay his respects at this simple shrine. Truly an indescribable feeling. Just then, more splashing footsteps came from outside the shrine. This is the scene. This is the one. A rowdy group of children with umbrellas dashed past. At first, Hualian thought that they were only passing by, but they unexpectedly circled back. They clapped and acted like they had discovered something extraordinary. Wow! The ugly freak got kicked out again. Although these kids were all around the same age as the boy in the shrine, every one of them was taller than him and looked like their parents fed them well. There was probably a holiday coming up, since they were all dressed in new clothes and shoes. As they splashed playfully in the puddles by the shrine entrance, their innocent smiles were full of life and void of any malicious intent. It was as if they didn't really understand that ugly freak was a bad term and didn't realize that their words would be hurtful. They probably thought it was funny. The boy clenched his fist, but that fist was so small that it wasn't threatening at all. Yeah, there we go again. Another mayhaps influence by adults onto children who don't really understand what these words are supposed to mean. But yeah, this kid has been called these things probably by adults and children alike for his entire life, honestly. The kids by the door teased and teased. Hey, ugly freak! Are you sleeping in the shrine again tonight? Watch out, your mom's gonna beat the crap out of you when you get home. Hualian frowned. The boy's one eye flashed with anger under the bandages. He raised his fists and yelled furiously. I don't have a home, I don't have a mom, she's not my mom! Get out, get out! Keep talking and I'm gonna beat the crap out of you! Damn, he's spunky. None of the kids were scared, and they stuck out their tongues. You wanna bet? Careful, we might tell your dad again and have him teach you a lesson. A few children even gave a knowing smirk. These evil little fuckers. Alright, you don't have a mom because your mom didn't want you. You don't have a home because your family doesn't want anything to do with you. That's why you have to sleep in this crappy shrine. Before they could finish, the boy let out a cry and lunged at them. For such a scrawny child, he sure could pack a punch. That loud war cry sent a couple of the kids running scared. But the one who was now tangled up in a fight with them yelled at those who fled. What's there to be scared of? There's more of us! With that, the ones who wanted to run away returned and joined the fight, pulling at the boy's hands and feet. Hualian really couldn't sit and watch anymore. With a wave of his hand, an invisible force shot out of nowhere and separated the boys. Then a powerful wave of puddle water surged up from the ground and knocked a pack of bullying kids off their feet. In the end, they were still kids, after being inexplicably sent tumbling and gulping mouthfuls of muddy water as they did. Their new clothes were completely soaked, and they were even filthier and uglier than the boy they had been mocking. Their boisterous laughter was replaced with loud wailing. They crawled to their feet and ran off sniffling, with umbrellas in their hands. Hualian shook his head. The duty of a martial god was to ward off evil ghosts and bring protection and peace, and here he was, getting tangled up in a juvenile dispute. Even though he had chased away the wrongdoers, he didn't feel accomplished at all. His gaze returned to the young boy. During that scuffle, the bandages on the boy's head had been partially yanked off, giving a peek at the other half of his face. It was swollen, covered in black and blue bruises. It was obvious that these injuries hadn't been caused by the brawl just now. Before Hualian could get a better look, the boy had already rewrapped his bandages without a word. He sat down by the clay statue's feet and hugged his knees close. Hualian had originally come to this Crown Prince shrine due to its convenience, and he was planning to summon Function and Mooching for some important discussions. But who could have expected that he'd come upon this little one? He was drawn in despite himself. Once the summons was sent, he crouched down beside the boy and stared. Not long after, a grumbling sound came from the boy's stomach. The offering plate still held a few pieces of fruit and other refreshments, dried out and probably not particularly tasty, but better than nothing. Hualian picked one and gently tossed it toward the boy. The moment he was hit by the fruit, the young boy wrapped his arms around his head and curled up defensively, as if he'd been hit by a rock, and was bracing for more to follow. But after a while, he looked around and realized it was only a fruit, and that there wasn't anyone nearby. Hesitantly, he picked up the fruit, dusted it off a few times against his clothes, and returned it to the offering plate. Oh my god, please. Please, boy. Fucking eat the fruit. Surprisingly, he would rather endure hunger than eat the offering from the plate. After that, he walked toward the door and peered at the heavy downpour outside of the shrine, as if debating whether to venture out for food. However, the rain was coming down too hard. Since he didn't want to be drenched again, he walked back and curled up on the ground to sleep at the clay statue's feet. Just then, Function and Mooching stepped out from the back of the shrine, drawn by the summons. With wary disapproval, Function said, "Your Highness, how did you find such a small Crown Prince shrine? Why did you send out a call from here?" He looked down and suddenly noticed that he'd almost stepped on the curled up figure on the ground and blurted out, "The fuck is this kid doing here?" Mooching also looked down, inspecting the child closely. He immediately asked, "Your Highness, is this the child who ran from Mount Taitsang 3 years ago?" So Hualian suspected, but Mooching is like, he immediately recognizes this kid. Hualian shook his head. "I can't be certain. I don't know what his name was, nor what he would look like now." "What do you mean you don't know what his name was?" "He told you." "Boy." While the three chattered around the unsuspecting child, the boy turned. As he wiped his face, Hualian realized there was blood running down his nose and from the corner of his mouth. Hualian felt even more strongly that he couldn't just leave him like this. "Why don't we have the child leave first?" Hualian said. "It's getting dark. This shrine isn't a good place to spend the night." "Do you think he has nowhere else to go?" Function wondered. "If that's the case, then I'm afraid this is the only place where you could spend the night." "He has a home, even though the situation might not be great," Hualian said. "Even so, this shrine isn't any better. He has to leave so we can find him something to eat. He's also injured." Mooching spoke up. "Your Highness, please excuse my frankness, but we don't have time to bother with these minor things right now. Didn't you call us here because you've made a decision? No heavenly official of the upper court would accept every prayer from every one of their devotees without exception. There were millions of followers in the world, and if heavenly officials had to attend to every single one, it would exhaust them all into early graves. This was why every so often they would turn a blind eye to minor or less impactful wishes, pretend they heard nothing to lessen the workload. Maybe it was due to Hualian's youth, how he was bursting with energy and passion, that he had yet to properly learn how to adapt his priorities. After some thought, he walked towards the entrance of the tiny shrine, carrying the umbrella that was gifted to him earlier by those pedestrians on the street. Hualian slowly opened the umbrella. The falling raindrops pitter-pattered hard over its surface. The boy on the ground heard the noise and thought that someone had entered and shifted slightly. But he then seemed to realize he didn't care whether someone had come or not, and he lay back down again. Hualian placed the opened umbrella by the entrance. When the boy noticed that the sound persisted, he finally found it strange enough to rise to his feet and go take a look. There he found a red umbrella leaning on the ground under the rain, like a lonesome, blooming crimson flower. He froze in surprise. Watching the boy rush forward to grab the umbrella, Mooching lectured, "Your Highness, you've done more than enough. It'll complicate things needlessly if you're too obvious and he finds out." Before Hualian could reply, the boy rushed back in and shouted from behind them, "Your Highness!" The three gods almost jumped in surprise and turned their heads. Cradling the umbrella in his arms, the boy's eye was reddened and filled with emotion. He lifted his head and shouted to the clay statue, "Your Highness, is that you?" Function was amazed at his deduction, and he didn't know that Hualian had helped the boy chase away his bullies and had even chucked the fruit at him. The little guy's kind of smart, he actually figured it out. Mooching, on the other hand, clearly suspected that something must have happened. He eyed Hualian. "If you're here, please answer my one question." "Oh no, fuck me. The boy begged. From his place high atop the altar, Hualian heard countless pleas of "please appear before me every day." When a sound becomes repetitive, it numbs the ear. Even so, hearing a plea like this, he still couldn't help but drop the matter at hand and perk up his ears. Beside him, Mooching cautioned, "Your Highness, leave it be." Hualian didn't speak. The young boy squeezed the umbrella tightly with both hands, gritting his teeth. "I'm suffering. Every day I want to die." "Every day I want to kill everyone in this world and then myself. I'm living in agony." From a boy who couldn't be older than 13. Such furious words probably sounded both laughable and pitiful, but hidden inside that tiny body was something explosive, something that sustained that roaring rage. Function frowned. What's wrong with him? Kill everyone in this world? Is that really something a kid would say? Oh my god. There's gonna be art on this picture. I'm not ready. Oh my god. Oh my god. It's so funny. It's so cute. The little chubby little Hualian statue is so cute. We only get Hong Honger's back. We only get the back of him, but we get Hualian's face and we get Mooching and Function's faces. "He's still young," Mooching replied flatly. "When he gets older, he'll know that whatever he's going through now isn't anything." Yeah, so Mooching among these three is probably like speaking more from experience than anyone here can. However, I don't know, like the indications are that even if Mooching had it rough, he did not have it as rough as this kid. And again, pain is relative. So after a pause, he looked at Hualian. "There are too many suffering in this world. Take young Anstrad, for example. Name one young citizen who has it better than him. There's no need to bother with this, Your Highness. Let's focus on our priorities." "Perhaps," Hualian said softly. One person's suffering probably looked insignificant to another. The boy was still looking up at the statue. His eye was awfully red, yet there were no tears. With the umbrella in one hand, he reached out with the other and tugged on the clay statue's robes, continuing to plead for answers. What should I live for in this world? What does it mean to live? However, his questions were met by silence. There was not a soul to give him an answer. It seemed that the young boy had expected as much and slowly dropped his head. To his surprise, a voice from above suddenly broke through the silence. If you do not know how to live on anymore, then live for me. Neither Function nor Mooching had actually expected him to answer, and such an answer too! Their eyes widened. Your Highness! The young boy's head shot up, but there was no one there. There was only a soft, gentle voice coming from that clay statue. I have no answer to the question you asked. However, if you do not know the meaning of your life, then make me that meaning and use me as your reason to live. Function and Mooching's faces looked like they were about to explode, and both reached out to smother Hualian's mouth, sputtering, No more, Your Highness, you're breaking the rules, the rules! But before they could fully cover his mouth, Hualian managed one last shout. Thank you for the flower, it's beautiful. I like it very much. And that was the end of chapter 31 of Heaven Official's Blessing. Oh my lord. Yeah, the art saved me. The art, the break I got from just the art page appearing saved me from bursting out into tears because, oh my gosh, the page was very blurry there for a second. Why did I do this to myself? So we have taken a sizable chunk out of volume 3, as in we read almost 60 pages, which is a really, it's a good read. It's a big section. And there were a lot of chapters because all the chapters were quite short. And not only have we, like, I actually think they did a really good job dividing up the volumes here. The time skip into volume 3 was actually, like, it's actually pretty good. It really helps making the skip more clear to us as readers, and also the fact that we're introducing so many new things in the first chapters. We're introducing the conflict, we're introducing the main characters involved in it, compared to volume 2 where we were setting up our main characters and introducing them as is, you know? And again, I have so much praise for how this was done. And I've already ranted about that earlier in this video, so I'm not gonna repeat myself because I've been recording for way longer than I thought I would. Once again, why do I keep doing this to myself? I mean, it's because this book is really, really interesting, actually. Like, I keep getting surprised by how, like, again, I hope that a lot of the things I'm picking up are intentional, because it's so surprising to me in a very good way that, yes, this is definitely a BL genre I'm loving. Well, not so far really in this book, but like I've been loving our little Hualian moments in volume 1 and 2. But this, like, there are so many layers to this conflict, and there are so many, like, interesting takes, and every single situation can be looked at from different perspectives, and these perspectives all play out with different people. Like how the building of all the temples can be seen both as the grief of Hualian's parents and also as maybe a waste of government funds, kingdom funds, state funds, and how this desperate father stealing or taking the money from the pond outside of this opulent temple of the crown prince is seen as something frightful by citizens of Xianle, while to this father it seems absolutely ridiculous and absolutely it's heartbreaking that these people have the means to help but they're not And what this father doesn't know and cannot possibly know is that even if help is being sent, there's this whole bureaucracy around it that's siphoning out all the funds and making sure that nothing really gets done. Like there are levels of, I would like, you can call it corruption, but it's, you know, all these checkpoints, it's bureaucracy that's, you know, stealing away at all these. Yeah, it's a shitty situation. And again, I just love how we've gone so quickly from, well, Xianle is doing his god thing to, oh no, there's a big something happening here and we're immediately digging into it and figuring things out and it's bad. Like from the very beginning, this is something that Xianle has never had to face before, and Mei Nianqing continues to be correct about one thing. Yeah, Xianle ascended too early. And while I don't think it is wrong of Xianle to try to even attempt to save one life, the situation is already stacked heavily against him, even though it was not intended to be so. I don't know if I like the State Preceptor's little, you know, it is bad that you ascended this early because your people are still around. Because again, like these rules and stipulations seem to have, you know, yes, they've been kept for a couple of thousand years, apparently because there's a reason for them, but that doesn't need to be a good reason for these rules to be followed as tightly as they are. I realize that I am mirroring a lot of the things that Hualian is saying in this story. And I wonder if the situation as it is going to end up in a sort of one of those self-fulfilling prophecies where we are ending up in a situation where Hualian, having contacted, you know, the mortal people, we know that he's gonna descend to help his kingdom, and so on and so on. Like, he'll probably show himself even more, right? So the way the situation is going, as it is explained to us in the prologue, like, the country was hanging on by a thread, and it's like the crown prince himself came and cut it. Like, that is the effect we know results from all of this. But I don't think it's because reaching out and trying to help is bad. I think it's because this entire situation is already stacked against us and against Hualian and what he wants to do. Like, at this point, he would need like super divine intervention in order to help everyone. And this is already a situation where the people who have the funds have taken what they can and then some. Yeah, gosh, it's all big, and it's a very frustrating situation for sure. And like we're sitting here knowing it's gonna go even more to shit. It's like, it's just everything's a warning sign, honestly. But I still can't sit here and think that it's not worth trying. Even knowing that this is not going to work out, I'm 100% with Hualian on this one. And you know, if he didn't ascend, he would be in the middle of this as a mortal still, have his crown princely responsibilities, and he still wouldn't have been able to do much more about this, maybe. Probably not. Especially since he wouldn't have been able to spy the way he is doing now. Like he is using his god powers to figure things out already. Like, imagine this situation minus the god powers. It would have been even harder to figure things out, to know what to do. And you know what? If Hualian had not ascended at age 17, no matter how bad that is, I agree with that, Mei Nianqing. If Hualian had not ascended too early, at an early age, there wouldn't have been all these shrines around it, and baby Honghonger wouldn't have anywhere to sleep at night. God, that was such a scene. It's such a good scene. I love the fat little clay statue with its little flower in the hand. Oh my gosh. God, baby, you're doing your best. You're so wonderful. But yes, again, I was not supposed to record for this long, but Volume 3 kind of sucked me in. I was warned that this would happen. They were all correct. Thank you guys for the warnings. They only really work if I listen. Yeah, I feel very close with Hualian right now. I feel I understand him deeply, on a deep level. Anyway, so here we are. I feel like for next time I should make like an arrow that can go here, so we'll be like, this is where we are now, and we can move it along the timeline depending on where we are in the story. That'd be a nice idea. So anyway, I am exhausted, hungry, and emotionally devastated. I think this is a good time to end the video. Let's end the recording by going through our tallies. No new additions to the Gege tally, of course. I kind of put that away until we're in the next, until we're back in the present, I suppose. And no new additions to the laugh or cry tally, though I have definitely been crying. Almost. I was so close there for a second. Jeez. 3 whole new additions to the ellipsy reply tally, which is great and all. Except all of the ellipsy replies have been super depressive so far. But yes, here we are. A total of 46 ellipsy replies in the whole series. And with that, warm greetings to near far, wherever you are. This has been Amelia, aka Space Puffin, and I will see you in the next one.